Hello and welcome to the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. I am George, the Howitzer Gerbo.
And I am Mike, the Buzz-saw Asti.
Sports Talk back with you. A busy February underway. The Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina are underway. The NFL season is finally wrapped. Basketball trades heating up. Random basketball all-star game this weekend that I found out about like 2 days ago.
Yeah,
Like
well,
NBA versus
can you
World
explain the
All-Star.
format is the better question, because not everybody can.
Yeah, okay.
Will you understand what's going on?
Do I?
Two
No.
USA teams competing, and then one of them is the last team standing against the world. But yeah,
I do not understand what's going on.
Nobody does, and nobody should, and hopefully this is the last year of this.
All of that gloriousness to come and to be discussed on the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. A reminder to find us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, YouTube, TuneIn, Spotify, and more. Search Howitzer.
You can also find us. You can also find us across social at Howitzer or Buzz-saw, at Gerbo3, at Mike Asti 11, and of course, if you can't find us by now, you're just not trying hard enough. Again, we are available everywhere you get your podcasts, and I can't really find a better day to be recording this in terms of my mood, because it's 50 degrees outside. It was sunny today in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it got dark early, but I was able to take a walk with the family after dinner. Haven't been able to do that in a while, so it's getting better. The mood is getting better. The weather is getting better. We're going from maybe winter to spring a little sooner than maybe the groundhog would have told us. I'm in a good mood for the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show.
It is amazing at what one day in the 50s did for, like, my unscientific count. Shout out, or sorry, to Ray Petlin. It felt like at least more than 50% of like the snow pack on the yard, on the sidewalks. Like, I didn't expect it to be that much that melted. Like, everything, rivers, little creeks,
fantastic.
going down your curbs, going down your gutters. Like, it's awesome. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, we're getting a little bit of melt. Maybe I can see more of the sidewalk. I can see the edges of the driveway as just opposed to like the lane that you've carved out in the driveway. But we got a good substantial melt today. Very happy with that.
Milo asked me, Daddy, why is there so much water in front of our house? Well, that's an icicle that has crashed down and now melted all over the place and is now water, no longer ice. But I am happy about it. I'm very excited to have the warmer days, even in the winter months. Again, F the groundhog. I don't trust him. He hasn't been right all the time. Maybe wrong this year. We'll see where it goes, even though we're supposed to have 6 more weeks of winter. But we got a warmer month. So, again, I'm in a good mood for sure. And, the family was in a good mood. Everyone's smiling. We're on a walk. I had shorts and a hoodie on. It was like it was fall. It was a fall day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, even though we're in February. So we're in front of Valentine's Day. We're behind Groundhog's Day. The Super Bowl now is behind us, and we hit an exciting portion of the sports calendar, even though maybe some don't always feel that way. You're now inching closer to March Madness. You get the postseason action of some of these major sports, and this year, of course, an Olympic year, which we'll get to in the back half of this show. Yeah,
some good random college basketball games. We're not going to touch on that today, but you've got for those who like ball, this is when the heart of the season happens. We saw Kansas upset the number 1 team in the nation, Arizona, at home at Fog Allen, and then I watched a pretty entertaining Illinois-Michigan State game a few days ago. That was another good one. So there's these games and these power conferences, the Big 10, the Big 12, some of these good ranked matchups coming down the line here. Check your local listings to check those out and keep up on these teams as we get into March. But before
I be covering the NCAA tournament for the first time in 3 years? We will see. It depends on what happens maybe the rest of this month. Yeah.
I've got I will be at the regional because it's in Washington, and that's it. That's it.
Well, yeah, it does not look like you will be covering the NCAA tournament. No. I probably won't be, but it's still up in the air depending on how these final weeks go. We will see. West Virginia is facing a couple Ken Palm darlings, but if you get wins against those Ken Palm darlings, we will see if you flip flop, and if you flip flop, then maybe you get in. So we will put that on a to be determined on whether I will be back covering the NCAA tournament one more time, and we will talk some college basketball, I'm sure, on upcoming shows, especially as we get towards March. But as I mentioned, we are now behind the Super Bowl freaking 60. Feel old even saying that. And another championship for Seattle.
The 60th Super Bowl does go the way of the Seahawks, 29-13. A very Seahawkian performance. And what I mean by that is all three.
Similar to the other championship they won. It's almost like a duplicate performance.
They've been in 4 now. They lost 2. Of course, they lost to the Steelers. And they lost to New England in the famous why didn't they run the ball through the ball, Malcolm Butler interception at the goal line against the Patriots. But the other game in the Super Bowl 50 mold 10 years ago against Peyton Manning and the Broncos, very similar Legion of Boom, and this time it's the dark side defense that made Drake May, who fell just a vote or 2 short of being the league's MVP.
One vote, I believe it was literally one vote.
Made him look pedestrian as quarterback. They sacked him 6 times. New England punted 8 times. They didn't get on the scoreboard for 3 quarters until finally the 4th quarter.
Honestly, the score in yards make that not an historic performance, but don't tell the story of that game. It's too bad that garbage time points were put on the board and the garbage time yards were put up, because Seattle was playing. They had a shutout through 3 quarters. They were playing like maybe the best defensive performance in Super Bowl history. It doesn't go down as that. But if you didn't watch the game, the box score does not tell the domination story for sure.
May himself turned the ball over 3 times, 2 interceptions and a fumble. One of the interceptions kind of like quasi strip sack returned for a defensive touchdown. Shout out to Jason Myers, whose 5 field goals would have been enough to beat the Patriots alone in this game if Seattle, and it felt like it was going to go that way for a little bit, but alas, Kenneth Walker and his 135 yards on 27 carries gets him the MVP award. Voters not yet willing to give it straight up to a kicker, but Walker's runs did have a good impact. And Sam Darnold only 202 yards passing, held nearly 100 less than Mayfield or than Drake May, who had 295. And as Mike mentions, those 2 touchdowns late in the 4th quarter when the game was pretty much decided at that point. Not necessarily, it's not necessarily repudiation of what New England did. I think maybe myself included. I'm not going to call myself a hater, but they played a very easy schedule to get there, right? And that's kind of what this league balance thing does when we talk about teams we want to predict every year. And, we've talked about the Houstons and who's going to be this darling and whatever. Both of the entrants from last year didn't make it this year, Philadelphia and Kansas City. And so whole new crop, kind of a wide open field. And when the league schedule allows when you're 3rd place, you got your.
That's what I was going to say. You win 4 games a year ago, you're going to get an easy schedule the next year. Next year for New England's going to be a hard schedule because they just won a division and went to the Super Bowl. It flips around.
You're going to play 4 games. Or 2 additional games besides those 3 additional games, besides the divisions that you are slotted to play. You're going to play 3 games. So it's a quarter of your schedule almost against teams that finished in the same place as you in those divisions. So that can be a significant thing. Now, New England, of course, ran away with the East this year, but those type of the league sets that up, and it allows, if you want to call it parity, this level of parity or this new ability for so many teams to get in there and access it. Seattle's been building over the past 2 years, whereas New England, of course, was a little bit of a whirlwind with how quickly going from Gerard Mayo to Mike Vrabel and Vrabel making it work. No doubt, no question about Vrabel's intensity and his qualifications as a coach. But what McDonald has built on defense traditionally, and of course, Sam Darnold, who not a lot of star power if you wanted Broadway marquee quarterbacks in this game, Mike, but Darnold has done what he's been able to do over just be productive, be methodical, be careful with the football, doesn't turn the football over a ton. And the closest team, the Rams, got, close. That game, looking back now, does feel like that was, the biggest hurdle in this playoff for Seattle, them playing MVP Matt Stafford and the LA Rams. But credit to Seattle, doing it on defense, very similar to the way they did it in Super Bowl 50 10 years ago, and it's another championship in the Pacific Northwest.
And Seattle was able to do it with a dominating defense, a quarterback that did enough around him, a running game that did the job, and of course, Kenneth Walker got Super Bowl MVP, the first since Terrell Davis, as insane as that sounds for a running back. Very similar to what happened with the Legion of Boom and that championship a decade plus ago under Pete Carroll. But the differences are, this does feel a little bit longer lasting. That was Russell Wilson, who's had a borderline Hall of Fame career, even though the last few years won't tell you that. But even then, it felt like they were having an advantage because they had him on a rookie deal and they could pay everybody else. Then once they had to pay everybody, it was going to collapse. And that's exactly what happened. And you saw a mass exodus. They brought in Sam Darnold as a free agent. This was not a homegrown quarterback that they have on a rookie deal. He's on his fifth team, for crying out loud. And Minnesota gave up on him a year ago after leading them to the playoffs. And, that's even a tougher pill to swallow than what's going on with Jets fans, who originally had him as a draft pick, and that didn't work out. So they had to pay Sam Darnold, and yet they were able to do this. They have him now for years to come, and yet they were able to do this. And they have a group, a second-year head coach, a quarterback coming into a team new, a group that wasn't predicted to do this. And it's even funny, the Vegas odds tell you that the next year's champion for next season is supposed to be the Rams again. They keep getting predicted to be behind the Rams, and yet they keep beating the Rams to win the division. They're the top seed.
Love Sean McVay. They love the odds. Love Sean McVay.
And then they go win a championship. And that's also the comparison there, that everybody wants to hire the next Sean McVay. Everybody wants that next head coach. You even see it from this recent coaching cycle. They're looking for the young offensive mind, 30s to 40s. They're looking for the next Sean McVay because that worked out so well for the Rams years ago. But yet Seattle kind of bucked the trend and said, no, we're going to hire the McVay equivalent on defense. This is also really the first championship in which a defensive-minded play caller is leading the way, and he's a young coach that didn't experience. This, again, feels longer lasting than even what happened with those back-to-back runs by the Seattle Seahawks a decade plus ago. And we'll see how long it does last. There's no guarantee they get back there next year. It's going to be hard against the Rams again. It does feel like that the NFC Championship game was really the Super Bowl against Matthew Stafford and the Rams, who clearly are the second best team in football, and they also paid a lot for their roster. But a similar style of a team in terms of a champion for the Seahawks this time, but yet a different story as well. And Sam Darnold, no matter what happens the rest of his career, will go down with this storybook season. I would imagine a Disney movie is going to be made in the future. I think that's an easy call. Like, who's going to play Sam Darnold might be a question that people should start asking, because especially if it doesn't work out from years from now, that it's even going to be a better story. But yeah, he's still in his 20s. He still has runway to go. This is why I thought Minnesota should have kept him. It's not like he's 35. As we're speaking, he's not even 30 years old, and they could continuously keep on doing this. But I think what their performance did, it cemented the season as, being one that we did kind of get everything right despite all the debates. For me, Matthew Stafford's legitimized as the MVP based on this situation. He had to play the Seattle Seahawks twice in the regular season and then once in the playoffs, and every single game his performance was better than what Drake May put up in the Super Bowl. Every single time, including the NFC title game where he did more than enough with his yardage and what he did and almost led the Rams to a win despite not being able to handle that Seattle defense. Drake May, a great young quarterback, doing a lot in his second year. But as you put it, Drake May put up historic stats for a second-year QB, but also taking advantage of a pretty easy schedule. Literally the easiest schedule for a team to get to the Super Bowl since 1999. And yes, that's the way the NFL sets it up. That, like back in 99, when you have a team going after a horrible season to go ahead and win a championship, that's what happened here with the Patriots. They won 4 games. They then turn it around, and they do this. And yes, you have to beat the Bills and win division over the Bills is a big deal. Everyone predicted the Bills to be champions before the season started, but Miami didn't end up doing anything again. The Jets were horrendous and a dumpster fire again. That's already the division right there. You just had to really beat Buffalo, unlike, say, Stafford, who had to get through Seattle, of course, the San Francisco 49ers that were a playoff team. And George, if they were healthy, they might have been in the game at their home stadium. So it was a tougher divisional situation for Stafford, and just the schedule and having done this year after year. I mean, the Rams are there as a player year after year after year since getting Stafford and McVay and company. Their schedule's never easy. It's every year they're in the playoffs. It's going to be a hard schedule. That's not the case for the Patriots. They took advantage of an easy schedule. It's easier to put up the numbers he put up. Even if you go to the end of the season, people comparing the two on their last several games and Stafford dissipating a little bit and Drake May having that great performance in his final game. That was against the Jets. Like, let's say who it was against. It was against the Jets. He then stat padded at the end. A great historic season for Drake May, a slam dunk draft pick. He's going to be there for years to come, probably a winning MVP. I imagine they're going to be a contender for years to come. But for me, Stafford deserves the award. And I know that Drake May even total yardage and weighted on the ground maybe gave him an edge a little bit. Some metric gave him an edge. But I do think his schedule was easier, and what Stafford did against tougher competition garnered him the award, which cements him for the Hall of Fame if there was any doubt before. So that kind of settled that debate a little bit for me. And Seattle proved themselves. Sam Darnold proved themselves. Mike McDonald proved himself because people didn't think that was a solid hire a couple years ago. And Seattle's the champion. Now, which one of these two teams do you think is more likely to get back there next year? Because we also have history against, despite Drake May being so young and Vrabel young and the Patriots looking like they're a budding franchise again off of now a second run here after Belichick and Brady. But history does not show that you get back there too often after going so early in your career. Only a few guys have ever gone and won after going and losing so early. So can they get that done? And does Seattle have a chance to actually go back-to-back as champions this year? Not just go back, but actually win the whole thing again, unlike a decade ago.
Seattle feels like the choice there, save for they play in such a difficult division, right? A division that sent
that's the issue.
three teams, three very good teams to the playoff, even though a San Francisco squad that literally limped there and defied a lot of things at the end of the season to just kind of
they weren't
around.
Healthy. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, man, they're still here trying to play, trying to get the shot to play in their own stadium and unable to get out of the divisional round. The New England, I think you've got to imagine, and we play this stupid game over here at
Buffalo, but you have to imagine Buffalo retools. Now they have a new coach, obviously more pressure. Allen's still very, very good. They're going to be a player, but it's about the postseason for them. But there's rumors of AJ Brown. Like, do they finally bring in a receiver, which they haven't had? And if they do, are they more dynamic? That's all you got to worry about if you're the Patriots, really, to at minimum get in.
They had Stephon Diggs, who ended up in the Super Bowl finally with the Patriots. So
right. Do you see the AI images though that people are trying to throw up there? Remember years ago he stood on the field and watched the Chiefs celebrate. Now he lost with the Patriots, but he didn't actually stand on the field with his arms crossed.
No.
Those are doctored images that I already saw Bleacher Report and others putting his image from the Chiefs game a couple years ago with his arms crossed and looking at the Seahawks celebrating. But if you look, the hoodie the Seahawks have on and McDonald has on is different than what they actually wore. So it's a doctored image. But yeah, Stephon Diggs is getting that knife wrenched in him a little bit more there and needled off some doctored images. But yeah, he's back. But will he be back? He might not even be back. Their team might look different next year for New England. But both of these two teams are led by defense, though. That's why they both could be back, is because their defenses are so sound. Even if Darnold drops off and Drake May somehow drops off and whatever the roster looks like, those defenses are so freaking good that they should be contenders again for sure. And again, I don't see any reason why Darnold or Drake May would drop off, but those defenses will keep you in it. And it also feels like that, we've been such an offensive era of football, and we'll get into this in a bit, but these numbers are so explosive. Everyone's career numbers are so high and so gaudy that the Hall of Fame could look insane and have everybody in there in years to come, unless you have the voting process that they put forth, which will now be getting changed from this past season. But maybe defense is still the way to go. Like, offense gets you the love and offense wins you so much, but defense clearly still wins you championships based on Seattle doing this. Do we see teams copy this is maybe another question.
Man, old mantra, right? Defense wins championships. We've seen the Steelers do it. We've seen
years
Seattle
and
do
years
it
ago,
now.
though, like right,
Yeah,
years and years
yeah.
ago. We're talking about recent era. I mean, recent
Philadelphia
years.
Philadelphia last year. That the Eagles put up a bunch of points, but the reason
No, it's still their
that game
defense.
wasn't vaunted Patrick Mahomes and everything leading the Chiefs was Philadelphia's defense, and the Chiefs hadn't seen a defense like that.
Yeah,
For pretty
Mahomes
much
has
all
made us
season.
forget that because he's such a great quarterback and they put up
Yeah.
points, but they even did it without lead receivers. So yeah, it's been defense. For sure.
There's still a place I think for defense, and to your point about Sam Darnold too. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Minnesota's general manager, randomly fired like a month after the season. So just 2 weeks ago, he was fired, but like after, and just general discontent with how he managed the roster. And now they're looking at, we put all our eggs in the JJ McCarthy basket and we let this dude go. And was in our house, was in our building. And now he's a Super Bowl champion. And we've got an untested guy who's been injured twice. So needless to say, Minnesota missed the ball there on that phase of it. The interesting thing about, or the part about New England, it's just like, man, that was I like Seattle's chances better, but I think you would agree that how different the NFC was this year and how strong the NFC was. When we look at kind of the bottom teams, and it was Green Bay at 7 and Detroit, missed the playoffs, but those are teams that are going to be in that conversation next year that were also unhealthy at
and
times.
Detroit's going to have an easier schedule now because they didn't get in. So next year's schedule is going to help them for at least a couple more wins. You would imagine.
Bears teams come out of nowhere, so you've got you got 3
healthy.
You got 3 playoff caliber teams in the North. You got 3 playoff caliber teams in the West. We probably shouldn't have sent any from the South, but the Panthers acquitted themselves well enough toward the end of the season.
I was going to say, like, the Buccaneers really disappointed. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs were supposed to be better. Who knows about the Falcons? They looked really good at the end of the year, but Cousins is going to move on, and they're going to have the Michael Penix Jr. show finally kick into gear. So there are some teams that are possible candidates, which I guess is another, a topic that could be discussed here on who could maybe be the next Patriots or the next Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's been building to this.
Yeah.
Granted, Darnold was new, where the coach has only been there a couple of years, but still building to this. And they were even good in their previous incarnation with Geno and Pete Carroll toward the end. They never were horrendous, but New England went from 4 wins to this. We've seen teams quickly do this throughout the history of the league, and the way the schedules and parity in the draft kind of sets you up for this. So, I mean, there could be a team, and there's going to be a team that we don't think will be there that will end up in the playoffs and then could make some noise. Nobody a year ago thought Chicago would all of a sudden be that good and would have a playoff win under the belt and have all these comeback victories, and Caleb Williams would look like the future and the most talented Bears quarterback in literally franchise history. So things like that will happen every single year, and who that player is and who that team is will be the question. But yeah, I think it's easy that Seattle's more likely, but they will have a tougher path just based on the division they're in. And even if New England keeps getting in and keeps being a legit contender, who knows what they do in the postseason. Not only did they have an easy schedule during the regular season to get there, they also had the benefit of Bo Nix being hurt and not playing in the AFC Championship game. And it does feel like that if he was there, based on how good Denver was, also a team led by defense, that Denver would have likely won the AFC crown, and Denver would have been in the Super Bowl. And that would have been another rematch between Seattle and Denver back from a decade ago. But do I think Denver would have beat Seattle? I don't think so. The way Seattle was playing with that defense, I think the defense pretty much would have beat anybody. They seemed possessed early in that game, but I think Denver would have put up a better fight for sure. And so that's an advantage for New England. And hey, they got there. Nobody else did when it was so wide open. That's another reason why if you're Lamar Jackson and now you have a new coach, if you're Josh Allen and now you have a new coach, you're sitting there saying, the Chiefs and Mahomes were hurt. They finally kind of the end of their dynasty run. This was our year where it was open and you didn't grab the bull by the horn. So New England did. And to be fair, as much as everybody wants to dunk on Drake May for a horrible Super Bowl performance, George, and he was really bad. And again, I think it legitimized Stafford as the MVP. The Patriots and Drake May are ahead of schedule. To be fair, I mean, 2 years into a career after 15 picks a season ago, having this historic ride where he almost wins an MVP, let alone leads them to a division title and a Super Bowl appearance, 2 years into his career. Vrabel, a new coach, and gets it done. They are ahead of schedule. So who knows what the future will hold, but they are ahead of schedule, and we'll see if Seattle can do it again.
You mentioned MVP awards week there. Shout out to Matt Stafford, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Offensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year.
Always a weirdness, too, when you have an offensive player win the MVP and then not win Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, it's happened throughout history, but it's always funny. But, yes.
Also handed out during the week, the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026, and noted less for the class itself as opposed to who didn't make it. Specifically, Bill Belichick, who didn't clear the voting procedure in the senior/coaches/committee portion of the program, as initially reported by Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham of ESPN, who are the Patriot Whisperers, and have written the books on the subject about the Patriots. A noted Patriot does go into the Hall of Fame in kicker Adam Vinatieri, along with Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, and Roger Craig of the 49ers. So,
but I do think even Patriots fans are going to remember this year as the year Belichick and Kraft did not go in more than Vinatieri finally going in, to be honest, even though Vinatieri goes in right away and obviously a deserving kicker. That's going to stain this year of them not going in compared to who goes in, even though you have Breeze and Larry Fitz, like slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famers.
So I'll get your assessment on it first, Mike. And it's is Bill, but second winningest coach of all time. He's won the most Super Bowls of all these other things that far lesser coaches have gotten into the Hall of Fame, right? They've been effing with this selection process now for like the last few years. And like years ago, coaches were considered on the regular ballot with everybody else. And you had
waited 5 years. Belichick hasn't been out 5 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were casual fans thinking, how is this guy even eligible right now? It's only a couple years ago that he was coaching the Patriots, and they had the whole weird press conference, and now he's obviously coaching in college
full years.
football.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like Jerome Mayo got 1 year, Vrabel comes in, they go to the Super Bowl, and Belichick is all of a sudden eligible for the Hall of Fame. We really don't even have the stench off of the end of the Patriots run before now he's a candidate here. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't vote for him, but it's different than before, where the 5-year wait, at least normally, the good part about it, despite wanting to have your favorite players just get in and favorite coaches if you're a fan, is usually a waiting period allows, and obviously it has not worked for steroid players in baseball, but usually a waiting period allows for some just kind of washing away of any usually everyone's career at the end is not better than it was in the prime. Any sins that may exist. It just allows for some atonement period to then get excited about seeing this person up for the Hall of Fame. That didn't get to happen with Belichick. He's been so disgusted with him, his girlfriend, what's going on with North Carolina, the weirdness of that, his personality shift. Like, I feel like the public is probably, despite defending him here, he almost did a babyface turn off of getting snubbed by the Hall of Fame after being a heel for the past year with him and his relationship with Jordan. But it almost feels like we got a little bit of Bill Belichick fatigue here news-wise. I think we just need to wait for college football season and not stop talking about Bill Belichick. But yes, obviously a Hall of Fame snub.
And this process, for a long time, just the coaches included with players and everybody else in the regular classes, guys like Marv Levy, Hank Stram, 49ers, legendary 49ers coach
Bill Walsh. Is that who you're
Walsh,
forgetting?
thank you.
Bill Walsh, right, yes.
Who put patent to the West Coast off, all these guys going through that procedure, right? And then in this side category, we'd have contributors and seniors, so people that didn't get a first look. So, and it was generally small, right? 1 or 2 senior nominees, and the senior group would nominate a person, and that person, that didn't necessarily mean that they were going to get into the Hall of Fame, but it fast tracked them into the finalist list, right? So guys like, as a Packers fan, we've gone to see a lot of these guys: Jerry Kramer, Ron Wolf, who's the general manager, Ed Sable, who created NFL Films and changed the way that we watch football in this country. Those guys go in through that process. And so they tweaked it. And so they added coaches into that category. As Mike says, that means the requisite 5-year period that's the standard that they would have previously had goes away. And also, it's a smaller group of people that are voting on that, and they choose 3 of the 5 people. It's kind of like the Baseball Hall of Fame, which is a little bit different. Normally, this process is I present X candidate for enshrinement, and a person, media member or former executive or whoever makes the case for enshrinement.
Right. Woody Page told me in Canton, I was sitting next to him in the press box for Hall of Fame induction that I was covering, and he literally told me that no matter what anybody does in their career, unless you have a shorter name to discuss, I'm going to always have the record for the shortest speech ever to promote somebody for the Hall of Fame. And he just went up there and said John Elway. And he literally sat down and we got a good laugh out of that. But that,
and it was a guy
really it isn't as relevant for this, because the group that Bill Belichick was part of is not the same bucket that, say, for example, people have been bringing up a lot, that if you're holding Spygate and Deflategate against Belichick and Kraft, what about Tom Brady? Well, Brady, when he's a first ballot, is going to be in a different group. It's going to be a different bucket. It's going to be a different process. It's going to be different people. So it might not affect him as much as it did end up affecting both Kraft and Belichick, who end up both getting screwed. But even the old timers that, I believe, for example, L.C. Greenwood deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. If you were counting sack totals from the beginning of his career, his sack totals will be right up there with some guys who were in the Hall of Fame. He was a key part of a dynasty team. If you're going to have pretty much everybody else from the Steel Curtain in there on the defense, I don't see how you leave him out. And he continuously gets left out. But you only can pick 3 guys out of a 5, and you have L.C. Greenwood, Roger Craig in there in the same group with Bill Belichick and Kraft, who are both first-year eligible as an owner and a head coach, who owner's still owning, obviously, and the head coach is no longer involved in the NFL, but only out for a couple years, against guys who haven't played in decades upon decades, and Greenwood even longer than Roger Craig, who goes in, and I'll save that rant, for a few minutes from now here on this show. And I did write about already my thoughts there, but it's not a fair dynamic. Like, Bill Belichick should not be going against L.C. Greenwood and Roger Craig to try to get in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. That just seems odd. People, you aren't able to just sit there and say, if he's a Hall of Famer, I vote for him, and he gets stamped in and he goes. You have to pick 3 guys out of these 5. The whole thing, it's going to get rectified. There's already been reports they are looking into changing it, but changing it in the first place made it more complicated, although it also depends on what you believe. Do you believe, George, I guess we'll go here now, do you believe that the reason why Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, but a larger extent Bill Belichick as a coach, who obviously has arguably the greatest coaching resume in the history of the sport, were snubbed because of what we're saying of the weirdness of the voting process, because you have coaches and executives and owners in the same group with longtime players who continuously have been snubbed for years, and not with a group that makes sense for them, and having it not be a waiting period? Is it because of the format, because of the voting process, because of picking 3 out of 5, or is it because of what we heard initially as a possible reason, that Bill Belichick, like, say, Barry Bonds and Clemens, who are never going to be there because of the steroid cloud over them, is now being made to pay was literally reported as a penance because of Deflategate and Spygate, and obviously that then would connect to Robert Kraft. Do you think that it's just the voting process went awry, or people in that room thought he needs to pay a penalty and get embarrassed for a year, and then we'll put him in? We won't make him do the Bonds thing of never going in, but we're going to make him sit out a year. What do you think was a larger factor here that allowed him to not get enough votes, which means that and we have so many voters saying they voted for him now. By the way, we know some of you are lying, because there's, you need 50 votes. You got to get 40. He didn't get 40, meaning 11 people didn't vote for him. So, we got 45 of you saying you voted for him. That doesn't work. Like, that math ain't mathin'. But which one of those do you think was a bigger reason why we're here having this discussion?
Though I want to agree with the first point, and just that, like other people, because we mentioned Roger Craig got the votes and he got in. It was a voters pick 3 out of the 5, right?
And just too from that,
on this senior ballot. So
which still didn't get in.
and in a very baseball-esque way, as opposed to being an up and down, majority thing like it is for some of the other candidates in the modern era finalists. Belichick needed 80%. So that coupled with kind of the obfuscation of people like Tony Dungy, who said he was going to wait until the process played out to find out.
And he still won't say whether he voted for
like,
the man or not. Did you see Rodney Harrison literally look him in the face, look like he was pissed, and was like, "You're wrong." Like, like, I mean, what are we doing here?
And as we mentioned here, like I keep bringing up the history because traditionally it was like, the hall's been, lack of a better term, a players' hall, right? Like coaches get in, but coaches weren't always getting in on,
they have to wait, even if you think they're definitely Hall of Famers. Like Mike Holmgren, for one, I think should probably be in, and he's still waiting. Bill Cowher had to wait forever to get in.
Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson get in. They have the COVID.
Jimmy Johnson had to wait for a while though to get in, despite
they have the COVID thing. And it cancels, COVID cancels everything. So they go with this crazy ass Centennial class, right? And it's 20
that was
plus
the one
people.
I was there covering, yes.
Yeah, that and Centennial, the league's 100th anniversary. So hey, let's go ham and have 20 people.
Imagine if they didn't do that, how much of a logjam there would be now, though. Imagine if they didn't do that. I mean, that was a 4-hour ceremony that Woody Page and I are cracking jokes trying to cover. But if that didn't happen, because that was really two classes in one, we'd even have more of a logjam. And of course, there are players that have got screwed as well. I mean, it's not just coaches and executives that have been screwed, but the whole thing doesn't make sense. Like, for example, Robert Kraft now has to wait as an owner. If you're looking at an owner resume, in terms of as an owner, how you would evaluate a Hall of Famer, does your team win? Does your team have success? Can you build a roster? Are you staying out of the way and not causing too many problems? And yes, there was some drama there, and massage parlor, and maybe he's causing some problems. But obviously, his teams have had success. He's appeared in 11 Super Bowls, leading as owner of the New England Patriots, leading the Patriots charge. 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different head coaches are getting it done through kind of multiple different eras, building this roster continuously, paying those checks, doing what he has to do, and also a major voice in the rules committee and what the league's been doing. Robert Kraft certainly deserves to be there. But Jerry Jones is a Hall of Famer. He has the Cowboys dynasty, the 3 rings from that, but they haven't been close to winning for 30 years when he was able to buy players that got it done, and he's a great marketer. Obviously, Jerry's world. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be there, but you can't deny that Kraft's resume is better, and one's already in, one's waiting now. The whole thing is bizarre, but it's not just owners and coaches that have kind of been screwed by this format and had to wait, because now it's these murky waters with old-time players, and one of those gets the nod. I mean, we've talked about it on this show, and we know that the man himself listened in because he's told us, and that's Terrell Owens. He had to famously wait for 3 years, and to George's chagrin, despite I continuously told him this was going to happen, that was, I feel like, George, for an aside, was that the first time the Hall of Fame let you down? Almost like you learned that Santa Claus wasn't real. And I don't mean the T.O. not getting in and being snubbed, but I recall from those old shows, you kept saying that even though he shouldn't have had to wait, that once he got in, they were going to put him in the montage. They were going to treat him well. Even if he didn't want to go, they were going to treat him as if he was there. They were going to wrap their arms around him and invite him to all these things. He vocally was against against the Hall of Fame and upset that he didn't get put in there for years. He was on Fox Sports every day arguing with Skip Bayless, and they pretty much flipped him off and said, "You're not even in our freaking montage. We're not even going to put a graphic up for you if you want to do your ceremony elsewhere." And that felt like the first time here, George, that even though the Hall of Fame didn't decide to snub T.O., it was the voters who decided to get personal and snub him, and they didn't snub Randy Moss and treated them differently, and that's not fair. And I've written and talked about it ad nauseum. T.O. certainly should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer based on what he did on the field, but that felt like the very first time the Hall of Fame got involved and got petty, and the whole thing's getting petty and immature, and now we're here. And the only thing I can say the Hall of Fame did in which they maybe did this right, because again, the voters are the ones that didn't put Belichick and Kraft in, it's not the Hall of Fame itself, is they did give Belichick a courtesy call apparently a few days earlier to pretty much say, we don't normally do this, but clearly you should be a Hall of Famer. You didn't get the votes. Like, to let you know so you don't find out on the McAfee show or on social media. That, I guess, was kind of nice. But George, I honestly think that should have been the light bulb. If you, as the Hall of Fame body, have to call somebody who did not get the votes to tell them, wow, we're surprised you didn't get in. Right there, you should know. Our format's not any good. We messed this up. We're calling this man to say he's not in. Normally, you ghost the people not in. You just do the door knocking when you get in. They're knocking on the door and saying, "Bill, you didn't get in. I understand it makes no sense to you," because the reports even came out that Bill Belichick apparently told a confidant, I guess 6 Super Bowls is not enough. I mean, so that right there told you that it's kind of a farce and they got involved. But I feel like now we are at a point, and again, that there are people that have been snubbed before T.O. Chris Carter had to wait too damn long. You mentioned Kramer had to wait too damn long. Elsie Greenwood's still getting screwed. A lot of these coaches have had to wait too damn long. Some owners getting right away. Other owners who are more successful have to wait way long. A lot of it makes no damn sense. Art Monk, you're down there in the DMV. When he retired, he had all the numbers. So when he retired, it was before
Art Monk was the NFL's leading receiver when he retired. Yeah,
and he had to wait. He had to freaking wait. He didn't get in. I mean, obviously Jerry Rice is not waiting when he retired with all the records. Yeah, people forget that Art Monk was Jerry Rice before Jerry Rice with 3 rings, and he had to wait. So it's not to say T.O. is the first guy that has had to wait unjustly. And of course, there's personality issues with T.O. in the eyes of some of the voters. But they basically made T.O. wait 3 years because he wasn't friends with some teammates and he did sit-ups in his driveway, and they were pissed off at him because he's never been ingratiated into kind of public culture or media and has always thumbed his nose and did his own thing and tried to, just live his own life. And he's been very, very misunderstood. And whereas Randy Moss has been ingratiated into ESPN, he's friends with everybody they need to be friends with. Obviously, Moss is a deserving first ballot guy, but so was T.O. But the T.O. snub, to me, feels like a tipping point now looking back, that once that was done and they were really vocally going to treat him and Moss with almost identical resumes and character issues
differently,
everything was there. They wanted to treat them differently. And it was really just a popularity contest at that point. They liked Moss more than they liked T.O. as a person, that then we would get here. And this is why you see T.O. keep saying, I told you this could happen. Tom, worry about it next year. Like I told you this could happen. And I told you so is right. But they need to fix the whole thing. And I will say, and I'll give it back, George, I think it's a mix, but as much as the voting process ran amok here and is definitely why, in a way, this occurred, I don't want to call Bill Polian a liar, but I'm going to go ahead and call Bill Polian a liar. You cannot be telling me that you don't remember if you voted for the greatest coach of all time in an incredible controversy of him being snubbed, when you go on these shows and say, well, I know that this was said in the meetings, but I am 95% sure I voted for Bill Belichick or Tony Dungy. I don't want to disclose my vote. I get the bylaws say you're not supposed to, but when everybody else is doing so without penalty because you're in such a controversial, highly debated situation, it looks to me like not only did this voting process allow people to really make this personal and make this a thing, but Tony Dungy, he's upset because he was coaching in the middle of Spygate and Deflategate, and his team couldn't beat that team and that coach. And, he doesn't want to focus on the fact that why was that? And he, Peyton Manning eventually got his rings and Tony Dungy got his. But Peyton Manning, one of the greatest of all time, certainly greatest regular season quarterback of all time, he had some playoff games that flat weren't that good early in his career. Maybe that was part of it. He couldn't beat that defense. Bill Belichick coached, circles around Tony Dungy in multiple playoff games. And Bill Polian, who orchestrated the Bills losing all those Super Bowls, then, led the way for the Patriots Colts rivalry and ushered in the Colts era with as an executive there with Peyton Manning. They did win a championship and got to 2. Feels like maybe he's in his feelings a little bit too, just off of what they're saying. It's hard for me to say this was just off of the voting process. And there wasn't anybody sitting in there saying, I want to embarrass this guy because he was a jerk to me and kept beating me and making my career worse year after year because, well, in reality, he was better than you and you just got in your feelings. That's where we feel like we are. And I don't know how we fix this because we're not making T.O. feel any better. He's still upset. And I'd imagine Belichick's going to now go in next year on peer pressure, but imagine how awkward that's now going to be.
Yeah. And to want to lay out some of the, kind of intricacies, because I think people miss I'm not defending the Hall or anything like that, but people kind of miss that the Hall exists separately from the league, right? So like the league can't, as most of as these do,
as the
right?
other Hall of Fames do. Yeah, they can't force voters to go a certain way. Sure.
Jim Porter is the director now. He's a little bit more of a behind the scenes guy, even though all of these changes have been made under his watch in the last 2-ish plus years. Most folks remember large, gregarious, tall man, David Baker, who was the guy doing the knocks on the doors in hotel rooms and whatnot over all these years.
He was in all the social media clips. He was front facing.
Very public facing guy.
Yeah.
Stepped back from his role a few years ago to be with family in Southern California, I believe is what he said. And I'm going to read a little bit here, Mike, from an AP article this week. AP talked to Jim Porter. Porter seemed less inclined to alter the recent rule change that grouped the coaches and contributors. So that, as we've said, now 3 out of 5, and you pick, and somebody's got to get above 80 there, whereas they were with the coaches. And Porter says that Porter says more than 50 years, coaches and contributors were with the players before we made the change. So what happened for 50 years and they can't do it now, right? But more specifically than that, the Hall had was kind of got gluttonous, my word, over the last couple of years. We had some 8-player classes, 2-3 years running there, and it was always a max 8 for a long time. Now what they're doing is 7. You were picking up to anywhere between 3 and 8 or 4 and 8 out of that 15-player finalist class. Now it's 7 make it to the final stage. You get to pick as many as 5. And so it's this goofy thing. So changes that Porter says he's going to do. They've been voting virtually, which I didn't realize. A relic, of course, of the pandemic. They intend to return to in-person voting, where everybody's got to get there and get in a room. I remember notably the story of Ed Bouchette talking about how he stood up in the room and made the case for Jerome Bettis a few years ago, and how that helped Bettis's induction into the Hall of Fame. Having that advocate, have somebody there in person, present the case for somebody. So 50-member committee, they're going to go back to being in person. Porter says the vote's going to happen closer to the honors show as opposed to the week before, as it did, and then these leaks happened.
That's what I was going to say. This year was more leaked than any other year. These leaks happened where obviously somebody in the room is leaking, and that was not the case before. And they also have said, which maybe you'll get to, that if leaks continue, they may start taking Hall of Fame votes away. It's actually against the rules to be leaking.
Porter said the Hall will look at replacing voters who might have violated the rules, either by publicly discussing the off-the-record debate about the candidates, or by not voting for the most deserving. And so most deserving is one of the qualifications here. And Porter said you have to pick the most deserving. Those are the instructions that are read 4 times in the session. And they're also thinking about doing a baseball thing, whereas baseball writers can choose whether they make their ballots public or not. The Hall is considering releasing totals in the future, which they currently don't do. You just figure out who gets in, right? In baseball, we at least get a percentage.
You could absolutely
in the threshold.
You could argue, as much as the Baseball Hall of Fame deserves criticism for the past really 20 years and maybe throughout its history. I mean, again, George, you have a Hall of Fame that Babe Ruth did not get 100% of the vote. Like, obviously, the Baseball Hall of Fame has messed up a time or two over the years. However, the Baseball Hall of Fame's process, at least, even though humans will mess up, looks way better than football's at this point. So mirroring baseball would actually be an improvement. What I will say, though, even though a lot of those changes maybe make sense, being able to pick more and making it more transparent, to me, I would rather have a situation, and really no sport does this unanimously, but I would prefer this, where you really are just deciding if someone's a Hall of Famer or not. The limits elicit this. I don't want to have a 10-person class all the time. I don't want to have a big hall. I'm not a watered-down hall guy. But if 10 people are deserving on my ballot with a resume like Bill freaking Belichick, I'm not going to say no to a man just because I want to have only 3 people on the stage. Like, the principle of that, I think, is why we have these scenarios. That's why you get a logjam. That's why, like, I've done multiple shows. I will, promote my personal podcast, Mic Drop, here with Baseball Hall of Fame voters recently because of all the controversy of that recent ballot being revealed. And I've had multiple friends and colleagues on that have votes, counter votes, they disagree with each other. And you get a scenario there where both of them, who I've had on recent shows, would say, well, I wanted to vote for this guy, but I held off for a year and then I decided to vote this time. And this other guy, I'm going to hold off for a couple years. And just to let you know about the future, I'm planning on holding off on this guy for next year's vote, but maybe after that, I might vote for him. I mean, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? You're holding off on a guy that you think is a Hall of Famer? Like, that entire process, that entire comment sounds insane for an intelligent person to literally verbalize. I think this man is a Hall of Famer, but I'm going to intentionally hold off because, and I've had this literally said, George, where a voter would say, I am going to hold off on somebody despite believing they're a Hall of Famer because I do not believe they should be a first ballot guy. I get that's a special thing, and I get that's something that may mean something to some people. You know, I've been to almost all the Hall of Fames at this point. I've been to Canton. I've been to Cooperstown. I've been to them all. There is not a separate room for the first ballot guys. It does not say on your plaque whether you're a first ballot. When I take my daughters there many years from now, I am going to have to verbalize on who's a first ballot in my brain. There is nothing there that's going to tell them who's a first ballot. Okay. You have a scenario right now for baseball, for example. Carlos Beltran just got put in the Hall of Fame. I think he's a deserving Hall of Famer for sure. Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones. They are career center fielders for the most part. I believe they both should be in there. However, they're going to be in the same room, with Ken Griffey Jr., Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, Willie Mays. There's nothing going to be said on their plaque. They're in, not as good as those guys. Not going to say that. It's going to read their career, and they're going to be in there. That's it. There's no all-time ranking. I mean, we do this in sports media all the time. After Hall of Fame, they release, here's the top 50 players of all time. That is not in stone in Cooperstown anywhere, okay? That is someone's opinion. It does not matter how much you respect that person. It is still purely their opinion. So I think we need to get to a scenario where maybe we take away the limit altogether. Because even in baseball, I think they have a better process than football, and it's more transparent. There's a limit of 10 guys on that ballot. There's a limit of 10 guys there.
And if you get to the number, yeah.
And George, I mean, you know, Ken Griffey Jr. had 3 people not vote for him, and one of the people literally admitted the reason why he didn't vote for Griffey is because he didn't think Griffey needed his vote, and he wanted to vote elsewhere because he was somebody that wanted to put all the steroid guys in, and he only gets 10 people on the ballot. If you are saying that you intentionally withheld a vote for a surefire Hall of Famer because you don't think he needed your vote, that right there is a screwed up process. I mean, these guys with these bulletproof resumes, we should not be having these discrepancies. I honestly feel like we should know what's even been going on through the history of football's Hall of Fame now. We know the past percentages and the records, and we knew Aaron Rivera was the first to get 100%. I have all of that in my brain being a baseball historian. George, in football, we don't right now know. Obviously, Jerry Rice was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Do you know the percentage of what he got? We don't have that knowledge. I would love to know if even for the first ballot guys, if they didn't get 100%. I would like to expose somebody who didn't vote for him back in the day, and I'd like to hear why, even if he's retired. Get him on the phone if he's alive. I want to know. We need to know now. We need transparency. We need the limits gone. We need to fix this damn thing. And as much as you're saying we should have a smaller group, George, in order to fix it now, because it's been so freaking screwed up, we almost need a bigger class next year. Because next year, to make this right, you're going to have Belichick in. You're going to probably have to put Kraft in. I still think LC Greenwood's getting screwed again. He's probably going to get screwed again because now you got to put Belichick in, but Greenwood should be in there. And then you got all these first ballot guys that are up next year of the Ben Roethlisbergers. And, you know, it's down the line. A lot of those guys should be first ballot Hall of Famers, slam dunk. They're not all going to get that honor, but Eli Manning's been waiting a couple years. I didn't think he was a first ballot guy, but I think eventually he's probably going to have to get in. Look at all these quarterbacks and all these yards these QBs have. I just said Matthew Stafford is a guarantee Hall of Famer now with the MVP award and all those numbers and the ring. I mean, you're going to probably have him not be a first ballot guy because it's so rare and it's so hard with these classes in such of a logjam. The whole thing is freaking screwed up. And as much as I'm a part of the Pro Football Writers, and we're both a part of the Football Writers of America covering college football, it makes you not feel like it's that much of a feather in your cap. Like, honestly, Jordan, we're growing up, wanting to do this professionally, being in the Pro Football Writers Association, being in these groups that we're in now. I mean, if you would go to somebody who doesn't follow sports at all and say that you're in the Football Writers Association, or I would, they're going to say, "Oh, you're in the group that eventually could get you in that room that doesn't even know that Belichick's a Hall of Famer." I'm not impressed. What are you doing? Like, it makes you not that proud to be in these groups. Like, what are you getting out of being in these groups? To be put in a room and have 5 Hall of Famers in front of you and be picking from 3 when they don't make sense to be going against each other? So a lot needs changed here. And I do have a Roger Craig rant if you have anything else to add, I guess.
I'm going to give you, to your point, Vahe Gregorian of the Kansas City Star wrote a column explaining his reasoning. He picked Ken Anderson, Roger Craig, and L.C. Greenwood, saying, quote, "In the end, though, I felt more compelled by what I perceived to be last chances and looming lost causes within the system as we have it, a system I hope the Hall will see fit to change now." And mentioned Jim Porter, who's the director of the Hall, saying that's not an option. You have to pick the most deserving. Those are the instructions.
Right. So is he losing his vote then? Because that's what Jim Porter said too. Are we going to see some votes taken away based on what people are saying with their big words thrown around? But yeah, I get it. I get the mentality. Maybe if I was there, I get the mentality that this person didn't need my vote. I want to put this vote elsewhere. But I do think that that's an indictment of the process. If you're not voting for a guy that you believe is a Hall of Famer because he doesn't need your vote, well, no. You know why somebody needs your vote? Because nobody prior been at 100% of the vote. So we needed somebody to get that damn thing. That's why they need your, like, why are we withholding votes? So it's the whole and it obviously it's politicized. A lot of this is politicized. I mean, even the Hockey Hall of Fame, George, I mean, that's far from perfect too. I mean, you have people that are just beloved figures. Matt Sundin, he's a Hall of Famer, but he walked in there on the first ballot. He had 500 goals and never won anything in the postseason. Brendan Shanahan had 600 goals and had rings, and he didn't get in until like 4 ballots in. How does that make any sense? And how it makes sense, Matt Sundin has become this ingratiated figure into the world of hockey. Like that is really where you are. And I know some others, going back to Belichick, even said they didn't like the fact that because Mike Greenberg brought this up, that apparently that with Joe Gibbs, for example, that he came back to coaching in the NFL after he already was in the Hall of Fame. And apparently that was frowned upon, that the Hall of Fame does not like somebody already in the group to then be coaching and be an active member of the sport. So they were a little bit upset that Belichick was in college football, potentially going back to the NFL in the future, would already be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's stupid too. If somebody is a Hall of Famer and they're done coaching in that sport, then they get in when they're eligible. That it should be that simple. I know it's not. It should be that simple. And I already wrote about this, and I don't know where you stand on this, but if I had to pick between if you were giving me Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, Cam Anderson, Roger Craig, and L.C. Greenwood, and we're just doing a most deserving, as Porter suggests, and we forget the rules and 3 out of 5. If you're telling me who's the most deserving on full-on career resume, obviously Belichick would be one, bulletproof resume as a coach, all the titles, and Brady was not elite those first 3 rings. Belichick gets credit for them all. I don't care what people say. 6 rings is 6 rings, close to the wins record, playoff wins record, in the NFC title or the AFC title game so many times. Belichick, to me, would be number 1. You could argue Kraft maybe number 2 as an owner. You can't get a better resume as an owner. I think L.C. Greenwood would then be 3 for me based on what he did as a defensive player and what the sack numbers would be. We're then debating Ken Anderson and Roger Craig. My point is, George, Roger Craig, and I don't know if you read my story on this because I pretty much, you want a small Hall of Fame. I threw that in the garbage can based on Roger Craig getting in. Roger Craig getting into the Hall of Fame, to me, is going to force the Hall of Fame to go big for years to come in the running back position, because Roger Craig barely is over 8,000 yards on the ground. Roger Craig has 50 some touchdowns. Roger Craig, I know he was the first to get 1,000 on the ground and 1,000 through the air as a running back. Roger Craig has like 3 1,000-yard season in his career. And yes, he was a part of a dynasty. How many times was Roger Craig an All-Pro? 1 time. His whole career, 1 time. Roger Craig now being in the Hall of Fame, George, means that somebody they also snubbed this year, Frank Gore, must walk in the door. Talking about yardage as a running back, 16,000 if that's good enough for you. In addition to Frank Gore, I'm going to send this link to you, and not even just trying to promote my piece, but I detail the whole damn thing here. George, I guarantee there are running backs on the board that are going to be up for grabs, that are going to be eligible, that some already are eligible, that you probably in your brain would think, well, this guy's not a Hall of Famer. His numbers blow Roger Craig out of the water. And I get it's different eras, but some of these guys even played close in the era to me. And a running back is a running back. The yards are the yards. People had way more yards even in that era than Roger Craig back then in most of the 80s and the early 90s. George, Sean Alexander, if you remember back from the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, more yards and an MVP award, more All-Pros, not sniffing the Hall of Fame. Jamal Lewis, if you remember back from the Baltimore Ravens when they won, more yards, not sniffing anything. I already mentioned Frank Gore. LaShawn McCoy, more yards. He's not going to get in. More yards through the ground and through the air than Roger Craig. Again, more Pro Bowls, better numbers there overall. The list can go on and on and on. I don't see how you don't open up the door for more if you open up the door for Roger Craig. So to me, not only did you snub the greatest coach of all time and snub the greatest owner of all time, but the under the rug story here is the guy that you elected, separate from the current players who were going to be eligible anyway, was the wrong guy, and to me is a Hall of very good borderline guy and shouldn't even be there in the first place. And if you put Roger Craig's exact career on a bad team, he wouldn't be there. There's a reason why this man had to wait 26 years. He was first eligible in 1999. Those numbers have been the same numbers. I don't feel Roger Craig should even be in the Hall of Fame. Yet this scenario of the horrible format, the atrocious process, and maybe people getting in their feelings and trying to screw Belichick over, got the guy that shouldn't even be in there in the first place in.
Yeah.
I just do not see how Roger Craig, again, ends up being the guy that you put in that group. And now LC Greenwood has to wait again. And now, again, you're going to be peer pressure with Belichick. I don't see how, I don't see how LC Greenwood's even going to get in next year at this point, as insane as that sounds. But George, down the list here, I'm going to do this real quick. I'm going to read.
I feel like LC Greenwood's been a finalist for the Hall or like been in the Hall of Fame conversation like my entire life. It feels like.
I mean, I remember when I covered that mega Hall of Fame double class after the COVID year, and at that point it was very discussed on if LC Greenwood deserved it or not, and of course he is still not in to this point. And I will even pull the curtain back, George. There's a Pittsburgh media group text that I'm in that the second that the reports out there were that Belichick and Kraft were getting snubbed, certainly Belichick first, people were firing off texts. This is horrible, but good news for LC Greenwood. And then he still doesn't get in. But I'm going to name you a running back. And I already named some of them, of course, but I'll even name you others.
Okay.
And you tell me if their resume, meaning yards on the ground, through the air, touchdowns, all-pro status, etc., is better or worse than Roger Craig. Okay. So I already did LaShawn McCoy, take him off the board. It is Sean Alexander, MVP, the more yards. It is take him off the board as well. I already mentioned Jamal Lewis, who I don't think is a Hall of Famer, but he actually has more yards than Roger Craig, even though it was a different era. Adrian Peterson, easy one.
First ballot next year. He'll be on the ballot for the first time next year.
on the ballot for the first time next year. We'll see if he gets in. Like he should
Mhm.
be. He should be a slam dunk guy. Had the record-setting season. Had the historic season. Was an MVP. Obviously, a
Yeah.
legit stud with all the career numbers. So he should
Yeah.
certainly be there. In addition to Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry. So an active running back. Been gashing teams towards the end of December's in recent years. Is his resume better or worse than good old Roger Craig, who's now a Hall of Famer?
Yeah. Derrick
Yeah,
Henry.
it's already better than, and another one,
Yeah.
Fred Taylor, better or worse than good old Roger Craig. Fred Taylor's not getting votes. Fred Taylor hasn't been a running back in
Fred
years.
Taylor's a good borderline one of those who's he's a guy who's been like up for consideration, right? But hasn't got the votes.
Okay, well, we'll see what they do with him when they're 10 years from now when he's in with this committee.
Senior committee or what? Yeah.
Roger Craig is in. But Fred Taylor is having to wait, and Fred Taylor's yardage and individual numbers, individual seasons, and everything is better than what Roger Craig put up. Going down, and these are going to be some that you're going to think, oh, they're not Hall of Famers. George, Corey Dillon's yards per carry, overall yards, did bring a ring with the Patriots.
Numbers-wise.
Pro Bowl numbers-wise, better than Roger Craig. He didn't mean as much because he wasn't part of a dynasty, even though he, by the way, was. Granted, it was only the one ring. So, like, what do we
remember how
here?
long that, like, there was this gnashing of teeth over Terrell Davis just because of how short his career was and how his career was, obviously two-time Super Bowl champion, MVP, all that stuff. And his career ended by injuries like that. Same thing last year with Shannon Sharp, which I never thought I'd see him get in.
Or Sterling Sharp, yeah.
Sorry, with Sterling Sharp, his brother.
Shannon Sharp's another one. He had to wait 3 years to get in when he had all the tight end numbers. Yeah, Sterling Sharp. Now, it's a little, I think a wait maybe makes sense a little bit when the careers are shorter, but Shannon Sharp is another one. He had to wait years and years. He had all the numbers for a tight end and all the rings, and he shouldn't have had to wait either. But George, in addition to Corey Dillon, work done. If you look at the resume, it's actually better than Roger Craig. Here's another one for you. Priest Holmes. Has more yards than Roger Craig. So
Priest Holmes, not a Hall of Famer, but shout out to Priest Holmes, man. Yeah.
Well, see, my point here is, I am not saying that I would vote for work done, Corey Dillon, Priest Holmes, Jamal Lewis, some of those guys. What I am saying is their resumes are either equal or better than a Hall of Famer now.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, do you think that Roger Craig getting in will open up the door and a revisiting, even if it's with this committee in the future 10 years from now, on more running backs getting in when they sit down, look at the paper, and see these yardage totals? I do not see how you're putting in an 8,000-yard running back and telling a 12,000-yarder he can't get any votes. And that's what we're doing here. Some of these guys, George, everyone I mentioned is over 10,000 yards on the ground, except for, I think, one of them. And it's just off the top of my head. But they're all more than Roger Craig. Some of these guys, again, we have multiple MVPs here. We got multiple champions here. We got more All-Pros,
single season record,
more single seasons in terms of historic numbers and better overall years than Roger Craig. Roger Craig was on a dynasty and got in because he was on a dynasty now in this late committee, and Belichick and Kraft got screwed, so you got to put somebody in. I still would have went Greenwood. But it opens up the door for many of these other running backs if you look at the numbers. I just do not see how you avoid so many of these guys when you put Roger Craig in. Roger Craig, he revolutionized the sport. Sure, he had one season in which he did that. We got to have more years to be a Hall of Famer for me. 8,000 plus yards is not enough for me, even in that era. Like that, I mean, that it's just there are, again, all of these guys here have more yards than Roger Craig, even though it's a different era for the most part. That's just a lot. That's a lot to take in, and we'll see what changes with the running back position moving on.
We'll take a quick time out here on the Howitzer Buzz-saw Show. When we come back, we'll talk about all the movement in the NBA, as well as some quick Olympics thoughts as the Milan Cortina games are underway. That's next on the HBS.
I was in a good mood. Now you got me fired up.
Are you good to go there? Oh, perfect. There we go. Welcome back inside the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. George, the Howitzer Gerbo.
Mike, the Buzz-saw Asti.
NBA, man, what are we going to do with you?
It was nice to have an NBA trade deadline and all this drama in the midst of the Football Hall of Fame fiasco and that conversation. As fired up as people, and myself included, would get over the Hall of Fame, I was able to, after getting fired up, prop up my feet, lay on the couch, watch the Hoop Collective, watch some other shows, hear about Giannis ad nauseum and whether he's going to get traded or not, and then learn about the trades that actually did occur in the NBA and just be freaking entertained. And even though Giannis wasn't moved, we had some drama and entertaining trade deadline nonetheless. And George, whenever the NBA needs somebody to cause some drama, especially drama when you least expect it, James Harden's here to save the day. James Harden's here to save the day.
Sometimes you wonder if James Harden actually enjoys playing basketball.
You know what I'm waiting for? You know what I'm waiting for is a media member to finally call him out to his face. I want that to occur one time. Obviously, a Hall of Fame player, speaking of the Hall of Fame, but I would like when, like, for example, Ramona Shelburne was doing the interview with him and he told her about, sometimes relationships end, and he had this whole story that just made no kind of sense and was obviously not what really went down because it was about money. I would like somebody to look at him while they're even interviewing him on the fly and say, James, give me the real story here. You just want some money. You don't really care about winning. You want some money. Like, that's fine, but just admit this at this point.
Brian Damaris, who's on the Mavericks TV broadcasts and does one of their commentators.
Yeah, he had a viral
that was the best one, not to his face, but just like, James, you're the problem. Like, it's you. You're
Oh, he's been called a basketball mercenary, which I love. Yeah. Like, he is a basketball mercenary, and that it's yeah. I mean, you hear what Daryl Morey said? He didn't see any move that moved the needle for him. No trades moved the needle. We need a Cavaliers Sixers first round series for sure in the NBA, and the basketball gods will give it to us.
You don't know what the Clippers are doing amid multiple scandals swirling around their organization that we've talked about before. Now they send, I don't know what the Cavs are doing. So Cleveland gets James Harden and their nice little young core that they had that was the best team in the East last year by record.
Last year,
last year they send Darius Garland and a future second round pick to the Clippers for James Harden. Will playing in Cleveland's harsh winter climate keep him from going to the strip clubs? We will find out here soon enough.
From Los Angeles too. He's actually from LA. Not only was playing for the Clippers, he's literally from Los Angeles. How many people not named George Gerbo would move from Los Angeles to Cleveland? Like, you would do this, but who else would move from LA to Cleveland in the middle of winter outside of James Harden?
Harden's averaging his most points in 6 seasons, 25.4 points per game this season. He's been with the Clippers since 23, of course, as Mike mentioned. Followed Daryl Morey around a bunch of places, including Houston, Philadelphia. Obviously, remember with
Morey lied to him and then got him to the Clippers. He followed Morey, and then Morey lied to him. And by the way, George, if you didn't hear me straight, Daryl Morey's a liar because he mentioned that a couple times there when he was in China.
Got it. Yes, in China.
He was in China at a Nike event of all things, and said Daryl Morey is a liar. And then he got himself out of Philadelphia after following Daryl Morey there and getting himself out of the Nets, and then to the Clippers, where he's from, where he wanted to be. It was a cash grab then. He signed a weird ass deal last year, and now, of course, another cash grab getting out of LA.
Garland averaging 18 points this season, 26 years old. Harden's a decade older than him at 36. He's putting up. I liked what Cleveland was doing, and maybe this helps you, the veteran. It's a very stereotypical. We saw what we did last year, right, with how good they were, and it didn't lend to any deep success in the playoffs. So now, after watching Indiana, different team this year, the Pacers are obviously with Halliburton injured, but watching Indiana and them get to the final and to game 7 of the final, now Cleveland thinking, can we does this give? He's actually performing well. Yeah, he's old, but can this give us the veteran boost with the rest of our roster?
So you would have stayed as is. If you were the Cavs, you would have said no when Harden.
Yeah, I liked what
okay. Okay. Well, here's
organically post second LeBron.
Sure.
And yeah.
I mean, they had even marketable things where they were publicly saying this is our core group, and Garland was part of that. But what I will tell you, George, I think maybe you're a little persuaded too much off of last season. I think as much as James Harden is a basketball mercenary, as much as he called Darren Morey a liar, George, James Harden is a liar. James Harden lies on a regular basis year after year. James Harden does not, he's even saying, oh, this gives me a better chance to win a championship. I haven't done that yet in my career. James Harden does not give a damn about winning a championship. If somebody would tell James Harden, you can have $100 million or a championship, and he's already very, very rich, he would take $100 million every day of the week and twice on Sunday and never win a championship. He is all about trying to make the most money he can. George, this is about next year was not a guarantee for all the money for him. He only was guaranteed about $13 or so million of the full money that he wanted to get from the Clippers. The deal he signed a year ago when he was not putting up these kinds of numbers and was still kind of in a funk of his value was a trash deal for a future Hall of Famer. He realized that middle of the season. Ironically enough, he realized that after they won like 17 out of 20 games and the Clippers were all of a sudden winning and looked like a playoff contender, and Kawhi Leonard is finally healthy and having the best year he's had in 7 years, certainly since Toronto, arguably even before that. And now he's forced the Clippers into this weird rebuild, but they don't want to be a rebuild because they have money, but they don't have anybody besides Kawhi Leonard that's anything to write home about. So they're almost forced to be that, but yet their draft pick could go the other way. So that franchise is kind of all kinds of screwed, and that's separate from any penalties from the aspiration scandal that we talked about in a past show. But this has all been about money from James Harden. And as much as James Harden's a liar, and that's why we're here, if I'm the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I am in my post-LeBron period, and even though it was years ago, and he's been in LA for a while, and maybe he'll return again next year, who knows, this is now my best shot to win a post-LeBron championship. We didn't get it done last year despite all the regular season wins. We flamed out early. We weren't really even impressive in that first-round series either. And a championship post-LeBron would really legitimize this franchise, that if they do not get one, it always will be that it's LeBron who did it for you. Without LeBron, you're just kind of this average franchise. They were in this period that nobody would have predicted. Donovan Mitchell is borderline building himself a Hall of Fame resume, and he would become a Cleveland Cavalier Hall of Famer, if nothing else, if he would get this done for the Cavs. This is their shot. And as much as you do not want to bring in an older player, certainly a player that's a decade older, Darius Garland's not Donovan Mitchell. Darius Garland's not Mobley. Darius Garland's not their second best player even on this team. I know he's a unique asset, but he's one of the guys that could be expendable if you do need to make a move. And to me, even knowing James Harden's a liar and asinine and only wants the money, he's still a very good player on the court, still at this point in his career. He's become more of a facilitator than the scorer that he was before in Houston when he was a ball hog. He's now actually a selfless player and played really well with Kawhi Leonard and whoever else with the Clippers, was arguably their best player, even with Kawhi Leonard there at times, leading them this win streak. I am in a win now mode. I'm not in a win 5 years from now or worry about these draft picks or Garland being so young. I'm in a win now mode. If I'm the Cavs, I need to do something to make this team better. I think that on the court for this year, they are a better team than they were prior to the trade deadline. I feel for this year, right now as we speak, even after wins with Harden, they're only a 4 seed. They were a 6 seed when they made the deal. Like they were almost in the play-in tournament. They've had a roller coaster year. They have 33 wins right now. They're not going to get the 60 wins they put up a year ago. This is a worse season than a year ago, even though Mitchell's still scoring. This Cavaliers team is trying to win a championship, not just get in and be respectable post-LeBron. And again, they haven't been playing as well as they did a season ago when that team wasn't good enough and flamed out in the playoffs. So I would be willing to give up a top 4 player on my team, but not a top 2, plus a draft pick for a future Hall of Famer that's playing really, really well and might be motivated to play well and is a perfect fit for me basketball-wise with Donovan Mitchell, even though some don't feel that way. I think they do fit. I think James Harden's not selfish anymore. Maybe 10 years ago he wouldn't fit. I think he fits now, and that's what we've seen on the court. So I actually think the Cavaliers needed to make a move like this to win the title. I think they're better than they were a season ago in terms of trying to win the championship. With all of that said, James Harden's asinine, and he's going to be gone in 2 years for more money elsewhere if he doesn't retire. Like, this is just all about money for James Harden. He doesn't want to be a Cavalier lifer any more than he wanted to be anywhere else. And this hurts his resume and stains his legacy for sure, even further. But if you're the Cavaliers and you only care about basketball, I think they're a better team now. I think they're a better team now. And I don't think if they just stood pat, they would be winning the championship. Even in a wide open Eastern Conference with no real legit elite team, they proved they weren't as good as some of these teams above them a year ago, even with this group. And this group wasn't playing as well as they were a year ago.
Another team that may be better, as I asked the Buzzsaw, as opposed to standing pat, the Washington Wizards. Yes, those Washington Wizards. Who?
When are they better, this year or next year, is the question.
Are they better immediately? Same type of trend, but far worse situation where they have, in theory, been building and doing this little by very slow moving process of Alex Sarr, who was the number 2 pick last 2 years ago, 2024, Bilal Coulibaly, Bob Carrington, Kaishan George, Trey Johnson. It's a very young team. Whiz kids, very young team. Nobody that anybody's ever heard of. They had Rui Hachimura, sent him to the Lakers. Are we going to build around Rui Hachimura? No, send him to the Lakers.
And didn't get the top pick in the lottery. Didn't get Cooper Flagg, for example. The Mavericks
get the lottery thing, correct?
So building, but didn't really hit that.
The Wizards had the best
pick.
chance, and Flagg goes to Dallas. Didn't Denny Avdia, same thing. We're going to build around Denny Avdia. No, send him out. So here we are. The first unique ball to fall earlier in the month when CJ McCollum, Corey Kispert traded to Atlanta for Trae Young. Okay. CJ
McCollum got rescued. I felt bad that he was there. He got rescued out of there.
He got rescued. There's Trae Young, which is because I got a soft spot in my heart for the Trae Young days that he was tearing up the Knicks and just that little blip, sensational blip that Atlanta had there for those 2 seasons a few years ago. And now that's, essentially over and ended. So Trae Young to Washington. Okay. That's interesting. Then, Mike, if you had told us 10 months ago that in less than a year, Anthony Davis is going to be on the Wizards, and that wouldn't be the only team that he was going to be on in that period. He would be on 3 different teams in this time period.
In the same year. A year ago around this time, he was getting over the trade from the Lakers to the Mavericks in the most shocking trade in sports history, in which Luka Doncic gets traded from the Mavs a year after going to the finals in a situation that no one, even Shams, didn't know about. This was totally under the radar, just between the 2 teams. People think it's a conspiracy where they had to get a superstar over to LA post LeBron, and then of course Mavericks get Cooper Flagg and Nico Harrison's out of there, and probably
fired Nico Harrison's ass in November.
Not only fired, I don't think Nico Harrison can ever visit Dallas. He literally can't take his family there, or his car is going to probably have a brick thrown at it. That is what happened from that trade, and now not only do you make that trade look even worse if you're the Mavericks. Obviously, Anthony Davis is getting hurt, has been hurt, and it might make sense money-wise, but you trade the guy you get for Luka, who's also older than Luka, which makes the deal even worse, to the Wizards. But it's also weird that Anthony Davis, who spent so much energy getting to big markets, even when he went out of New Orleans, he said, I want to be on a special stage in LA and won a title there. I wonder how he's loving that he's going to be on the Wizards. This is not a scenario, George. If somebody would have told me, if you would have painted that picture a year ago, Anthony Davis will be on 2 teams, you have the Luka deal, and then he'll eventually be on the Wizards, I would have said it'll be kind of like the Chris Paul scenario where he'll, be dealt and then he won't report, and then who knows about the future. Chris Paul's not going to play for the Raptors, for example. No, Anthony Davis is on the Wizards. It's on social media. Him and Trae Young are out there. He might not play tomorrow, but he is going to play for the Washington Wizards the next time he plays an NBA game. And that seems insane. Yes.
Hey, And Washington loads up with 4. Not only Davis, D'Angelo Russell was like a second overall pick a decade ago.
Yeah,
Jaden Hardy, Dante Exum. So, okay, Wizards are going to bring in the veterans now. Chris Middleton, he, of course, champion alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee a few seasons ago. He ends up in Dallas. AJ Johnson ends up in Dallas. Charlotte's in this trade. They send Tyus Jones to Dallas. And the Wizards also send 3 second-round picks to the Mavericks. And so it's...
Which mean nothing, though, second-round picks in the NBA.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's like this, trying to figure out what this team wants to do in an identity. And not that they were going anywhere, in my opinion. A lot of people in town like, oh, look, the Wizards are no. Wizards started out the season
This
suck
year,
ass per usual. They lost 67 games last year.
Yeah, I mean, they're in 14th right now in the East.
67 games 2 years ago. They lost 64 games last season. Right now, next to last with the aforementioned sad Pacers with 38 losses. So, and you're coming up on the All-Star break Sunday, so you're getting close to that, cracking that 60 loss threshold again.
Yeah. So they're going to add a lottery pick in addition to this roster because they're going to be in the lottery. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in basketball. They may not hit the lottery, but they have a chance to get a solid draft pick with this crew.
There's a lot of stuff, if you're a Wizards fan, that should make you feel good, just because that I don't think that trudging a lot with how not bad, but kind of dealt the hand they were with the draft capital and whatever. And for some reason, we call them, United Nations Wizards. They love doing this international shit where they pick all these international players. I'm not saying that to be derogatory, but sometimes they're unknown commodities, right? And the Wizards have had a lot of the unknown commodities. Rui Hachimura, Denny Avia, whatever, and thought those guys were going to lead them out of the doldrums. And newsflash, they were not.
Well, people know these players now, though. I mean, they got a Hall of Famer on the roster. I mean,
yeah. So you got a Hall of Famer, a couple of French guys, and some young talent. Bub Carrington, promising player. Alex Sarr, promising player. So this kind of goes back to Davis here, Mike. And we're not. I want you to give like an assessment of what do you think where the Wizards are at projection wise, but not to like equate him with Harden, because Harden's got his own issues about why he won't play. Davis injured, right? Ligament in his hand. So I've seen multiple things this week, reports, insiders saying that Davis is going to shut it down and not play this season. And then the franchise saying, no, he's going to come back when he's healthy, which are two conflicting viewpoints.
Here's the thing.
Yeah. And so it's not that Davis is like a problem child here, but we know that he's had a history of injuries, right? No, Hall of Fame level player. But
the resume is going to be Hall of Fame. Obviously, the Basketball Hall of Fame is also easier to get into. I mean, when you have all these all-star appearances, all these point totals, and you win a championship, he hits a big shot during the title run. We did in college basketball as well at Kentucky. He's going to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's about more than the NBA. He's going to be there. However, Anthony Davis has never fully lived up to who Anthony Davis probably could be. He's never had a fully healthy year. George, there are people that believe the only reason why he has a championship and LeBron won that title in the bubble is because that was the only year that Anthony Davis was not able to have a shutdown season. He had a year where he was trudging along, doing the injury thing. I'm hurt, I'm healthy. Everyone was wincing. And then the league took a month and a half break because of a pandemic. And then they got back in the bubble and played. It was like he had an off season and was fresh as a daisy to go play in the bubble. If they went all the way through, he would have got hurt. He would have got hurt. He wouldn't have been available. It would have been the same scenario as now. They took the possibility of a season-ending injury in the middle of the season in the spring away from him because in that period they were off because of the COVID pandemic, and then they went in the bubble and had his championship run. But he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He is still a productive player. When on the court, including the first game as a Maverick after the Luka trade, if you recall, and ask Nico Harrison who brought this up, in the first half of that game, he was slamming on everybody, mean mugging the crowd, even at home. Like, he looked like a man possessed and looked like a dominant force that maybe you're sitting there saying, you don't want to trade a 26-year-old who's a 5-time first team All-Pro and Luka, who's already a legend, but maybe this will be better for 1 or 2 years if you're the Mavericks who were trying to do it right then and have their short window. We later learned that no, the trade was horrendous, but part of it is Anthony Davis is just hurt all the time. So if I'm the Wizards, George, I don't hate this for them. I mean, Anthony Davis is not James Harden who's trying to get out of town constantly for money. He just hurt all the time. And it's very possible that he could get hurt next year, that he could never play a full season with the Wizards, that even though he's not going to retire tomorrow, he might as well, because we're never going to see enough games to even contend for awards, because they have that threshold now in the league. He doesn't even hit that on a regular basis. But if you're the Wizards that have really not been relevant in years, have not even been a true contender, even when they had Gilbert Arenas, they weren't really a contender. They got in every year, but no one thought they were going to do anything. They have not been a championship contender since the 70s. They have the longest drought of not making a conference finals for teams that have been around forever. If you're the Wizards, who have been rebuilding for years now without stars, without household names, you tried the Russell Westbrook experience. It just, nothing has ever worked out for you in recent memory. Yeah. If you can give up some second round picks and get a future Hall of Famer that at minimum is going to put butts in the seats, I almost bet season tickets are going to go up for next year. And if he's healthy, you're at least better defensively, because he is still a dominant force defensively. No one can get by him with his length and his size. He's going to at minimum give you 5 or 6 rebounds a game and probably 10 points or so. Like, his worst game is still really good for you. And it is a wide open conference. You could squeeze into the postseason, gain some more revenue for some home playoff games. I'm not saying they're going to win a title with Anthony Davis, but I like the pairing of him and Trae Young. I mean, George, I'm not saying these are the same here. I'm not comparing. Well, I guess I'm comparing the two, but I understand this is crazy. But a Trae Young, Anthony Davis comparison, it's almost like a Shaq Kobe scenario here. You have a great shooter who's fearless, and a big who can do everything and clean up the dirty work and make that guy not have to really worry about defense. Even though Kobe was better defensively, doesn't have to worry about it. Trae Young's not a great defender, can shoot. And Trae Young's still a solid player. He's still playing well. Granted, making a lot of money, which kind of made him unattractive to the Hawks in this apron business, and his deal wasn't great, but he's still a productive player. So the team is way better. And what I will also say, George, I don't have the inside info here on who is correct and who is telling the truth in terms of how actual hurt he is, because there are even some saying that the Mavericks were kind of trying to fudge it before they got a trade partner. They wanted to shut him down to get another draft pick for Cooper Flag once they realized they weren't going anywhere. They are kind of tanking themselves. He got hurt.
Chris Haynes,
that value was gone.
With NBA TV, Turner, and now with Prime Video, reported that he was going to be out the remainder of the season to rest his hand and his groin.
But the Mavericks didn't say that. The
Mavericks did not say that. Will Dawkins, the Wizards general manager, says that he expects Davis to return and that they're going to understand a better after the All-Star break, which is next Sunday.
But what I'm saying, I don't know who is telling the truth there. However, if I'm the Wizards, okay, we're recording this here on February 10th. They have 14 wins. They're not going anywhere, even with a much better roster than they had a week and a half ago. For sure. Whether you like the deal or not, way better team on paper than a week and a half ago. Going to be better next year than this year, than the year before. They're not going to lose 60 games if that roster and those players play enough of the year next year. With all that said, if I'm the Wizards, I would intentionally not play Anthony Davis and Trae Young. I would intentionally be trying to tank the rest of this year. There are a lot of teams that are going to try to tank the rest of this year. Maybe there'll be a rule in place to hurt them in the future, and you're going to have the flip of the draft results and the lottery system, and people are trying to argue that when you get to after the All-Star break, you got to have losses be wins for teams out of the playoff picture and do something to make this not happen. Sure, if that's the case, then it's a different conversation. As we stand now, here in the year of 2026, the year of our Lord, you can tank. It can work. It's best for business. And if you're the Mavericks, I love them trading Anthony Davis because the Luka trade was stupid. But now they got Cooper Flag. They lucked out. The basketball gods smiled down on them, and they need more draft picks. They're horrible as is. Maybe Kyrie will get healthy next year. They get another draft pick. They need to tank. If you're the Wizards, though, you're still out of the race. It's not like, George, if they were the 7th seed, and then you bring in these players, okay, you can go for it in a wide open conference. It's too far gone. There's not enough games left. I would tank this year. I would tell Anthony Davis, I don't care if you're hurt or you're lying, you're not playing. You're going to go with the lie. We'll go with it. I don't want you to play. I wouldn't play Trae Young either. There's no benefit. I could argue maybe they want to play together and you're going to gel together. Okay. But everything they did at this deadline to me screams work for next year. Meaning they're not going to bring in free agents because nobody wants to play there. But they already got their big fish in Anthony Davis and Trae Young in trades this year.
Nobody wants to play there, so we're going to force your hand to play here by
right, but you pretty much need to tell your friends that do not look for big moves in the offseason. What's going to happen is they will go into the draft, maybe hit the lottery there, bring in one more player who's a solid rookie that'll be part of the team and could actually contribute. And the rest of the group for next year is going to be the Anthony Davis, the Trae Young, going to be this group, and you're going to bring them back. Their offseason moves occurred at this deadline now, and I have no reason why I would want to play these men now. I would shut them down and I would not play them now. And, to even flip it here to segue, if I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, number one, I at some point I would trade Giannis because he clearly wants to leave, even though you talk about pussyfooting, he just won't come out and say it, and it's getting ridiculous. He clearly wants to leave. They're not going to win another title there. But I would also tell Giannis, okay, you didn't want to come out with it. You didn't want to be the bad guy. Yeah. We couldn't make a deal work for you. We weren't getting enough in return. We need to hit gold with our value back from you because we're not going to get a free agent either. And you're either our best player in franchise history or our second, and you led us to a championship. But here's what's going to happen. We're not playing you either. We're shutting you down too. We're not going anywhere ourselves. And if you're going to leave in the offseason in the summer or whenever you're going to leave, or even if you want to stay, George, either way, I would tell him our best course of action is to try to go into the lottery and get one of these solid rookies coming out of college basketball. Boozer, DeBansa, whoever. Try to get one of these guys. If we can, we'll pair him with you and you can stay. If you still want to leave, at least we can build around this man. Either way, what is the benefit of us for you to play basketball?
Yeah.
All you're doing is messing up the future plan because this season's going nowhere. I mean, honestly, I could argue there's literally like 10 teams in the league that shouldn't tank and everybody else should be tanking. I mean, that's like the rule, the way the format works right now. If you are not, I'll give you the Detroit Pistons, the Cleveland Cavaliers we talked about earlier, the Knicks, Orlando, maybe if they think they have a legit chance. I mean, look here at the standings. Charlotte's playing really well now, of course. Maybe Toronto, the Sixers, because they're always hurt, but now they're healthy and playing well with Maxey and Embiid. Those teams shouldn't tank out of the East. Everybody else should tank. Over in the West, obviously OKC trying to go back-to-back. Wemby now with the Spurs. They're the number 2 seed. KD and the Rockets. Obviously, Denver, if you can get the Joker fully healthy. LeBron, who knows his future, and AR is getting it done. So, okay, they should try. Obviously, the Minnesota Timberwolves should try with Anthony Edwards. The Suns are kind of funky. The Warriors are going nowhere. From the Timberwolves on down, from 6 on down, George, the Suns, the Warriors, the Trailblazers, the Clippers, the Grizzlies, who didn't trade John Morant but traded everybody else, the Mavs, the Jazz, the Pelicans, the Kings. Some of those teams are actually trying to tank, but all of them should be, because they're not going anywhere. And if you try to tank, you have a better chance at the lottery, better chance at a draft pick. And unlike the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, your success is the first round, and that is it. Like it's a small number of second round Hall of Famers, of undrafted Hall of Famers, or even All-Stars. You got to hit in the first round. Why even trying to win now? So the Bucks should try to tank since they didn't trade Giannis. And I don't know what the Wizards are doing this year, but I like the moves for next year. I think you got to try something. I think they'll be better next year if those players are healthy. But if Anthony Davis plays one game or Giannis plays one more game the rest of the year, it's a dumb move. What are they doing? I mean, why would you play them? It's not better for your future.
We'll see. Summer, next chance for negotiations, perhaps with the Knicks again. Perhaps.
Do you think Giannis is dealt in the summer now?
I feel like it's going to happen at this point. Yeah, and he doesn't.
Do you think we're ever going to get him to actually grow a pair? I mean, say he wants out of there. I mean, that's
no.
what
I think
it
the
is.
team. I think he gets to be the good guy, and the team's going to like force his hand basically, and say sorry, and then cry, and then we're gonna have a trade. So
Well, he might actually. I mean, there are people that are insiders are saying that he does want out of there. He just won't say it. So I don't even know if he would care. I mean, he wants to win a championship again. Obviously, that's not happening there.
They
there
didn't
are some
trade.
saying he does want out.
They didn't trade him, and then they did that Wolf of Wall Street thing. He put a post on social.
Yeah,
Legends don't chase, they attract.
Yeah, that's some shit. I mean, legends don't chase, they attract. First off, who is he attracting? Who has he ever attracted? Damian Lillard is it. Giannis's championship with the Bucks is a special title in a league that has always seen multiple Hall of Famers pair up and win titles, whether it's homegrown or they join forces together, no matter what era. It's always been like that. It's not just the recent era. It's always been like that. We have Hall of Famers together winning rings. Sure. That's always been the story. There were some outlier titles that are not like that. The 04 Pistons are one. The 21 Bucks are another, and they're led
Toronto.
by a Hall of Famer, but that's the only, and that was Kawhi. They both had one Hall of Famer, and Kawhi Leonard and Giannis leading those two titles. But Giannis's championship, if you want to rank titles, him winning that title does maybe mean more than KD joining with the Warriors who already won and getting those two, even though he was great and was Finals MVP both those 2 years. Giannis was Finals MVP and led the way after trailing in the series initially and won a championship. Only the second ever for the Bucks, first in 50 years, and like Kareem, he's probably going to leave. But at the end of the day, he's not attracting anybody to Milwaukee. They're not going to win a championship there. If he keeps saying he's going to try to win a championship, or they want to win a championship, or he wants to do everything he can to win a championship, it won't happen again in Milwaukee with him.
No,
it's best for them to get value back for him, and it's best for him to go elsewhere. And he puts up that video, he puts up that post. So if he joins another team or gets traded to another team, is he going to, what's he going to say to that? It just seems ridiculous. It's going to be hypocritical at some point. Yeah. I guess the last thing here, George, I kind of do want your thoughts on this, because I could argue that maybe you cursed this man to make his life this. Poor Giannis. Is Chris Paul. What is going on with his career,
man?
And I mean, James Harden's been a basketball mercenary on his own doing, but Chris Paul got jettisoned from the Clippers mess. He then now became available to play again in his final season that was announced as his final season, including by the Clippers, who prior to that, who would later jettison him, so announced that prior to that. But after being kicked off the Clippers in the dust of the night at 3 a.m., and then being made available and traded to Toronto of all places, when he said he wants to keep trying to win this championship that's eluded him, the only chance was at his only finals with the Suns, and you were rooting for him that year, and you thought they were going to do it, and you were even bragging about them doing it when they were up in the series. I remember I was in the airport coming back from my honeymoon, and I was looking there, and I was like, I can't believe the Bucks are doing this, and they came back and won that title. And Chris Paul had that period on these forgettable years, these period on the Warriors that were a rival of his that he previously hated, the Spurs, a franchise he previously hated that were a previous rival of his. I mean, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest point guards ever. What team is he associated with? I don't know. We got a record for teams here for Hall of Famer. What the hell? Like, are we going to see him the rest of the season? Will it be on a good team? Why is he treated this way? What the hell? I mean,
maybe he is just. There's a lot of hilarious things here. First of all, the Clippers sent him home months ago, and just like,
it's funny,
go home. We don't need your ass. We don't need you to play. We don't care if you get healthy. I will put this more, Mike, on friend of the program whose music you hear right here each and every time, B-, who noted longtime Chris Paul hater. I believe he has now face turned on Chris Paul, where he is not. When I send him messages on social about
how can you hate Chris Paul? He's like a victim of circumstance.
He was a Chris Paul hater for a long time, and so I sent him these things like, look at Chris Paul, make fun of him, and he's kind of like, I think Kellen's feeling sad for him a little bit now at the end of his career. And he put something in there the other day saying, I
mean, ever since the loss to West Virginia in the NCAA tournament, he's been very, very unlucky.
Yeah,
that's kind of been the theme of Chris Paul's career.
He said,
a great point guard.
He said something the other day. And I'm going to find it real quick, that I said, he's not been playing for months, right? And he said, right, staying in shape according to reports, and I said reports coming from his kitchen. So, like, who are the reports coming from? The State Farm guy who's living in the kitchen with his house, and
well,
get out of here.
Peacock, and where he was talking with Chris Haynes.
If I have to go heel Chris Paul here, basically nobody likes Chris Paul anymore, and they just want him to get his ass to retire so they can do the Hall of Fame, like Mike says, where we don't know if he's going to. Is he Chris Paul representing basketball, point guards of basketball? That's
I guess
Chris
it's
Paul,
the Hornets in different iterations, or obviously the Suns because he went to the finals there. But I mean, even.
So
he even hit
Kellen's face turned beginning of the end for Chris Paul, and now he still lingers. He was a Wizard for 10 days.
Everywhere Chris Paul goes becomes better. The team becomes better. He does lead good teams. They just haven't won a championship yet. And just in recent years, these destinations are it's not even just decisions of he's being forced to these places. George, he was the president of the Players Association. Like, he is being treated horribly for a Hall of Famer who was head of the Players Association. And the man had said when it almost feels like, George, it almost feels like that because at one point he left the Clippers when they tried to re-sign him after being there forever, and maybe that's the team he goes in the Hall of Fame with. Lob City might be the era of Chris Paul that he's most known with. Maybe that's his most successful period, certainly as an individual. But that was the group that couldn't get over the hump because of all the drama, despite being solid teams and entertaining basketball. He then left them to go to Houston and pair with the previously mentioned James Harden, have that asinine period where he got hurt and maybe they could have beat the Warriors, but then James Harden basically kicked him out of town. So the Clippers maybe are in their feelings because of that, and then also maybe in their feelings because when he went to the finals, he beat them in the conference finals when Kawhi Leonard was hurt the damn whole series, and Chris Paul was healthy enough and was able to beat them as they were very undermanned and probably felt like they would have won if they were fully healthy. And it almost feels like that because the Clippers are upset that he left them and then beat them, that they signed him just to troll him because they bring him in, they do a joint announcement that this is going to be his final year. Weeks later, they don't just even find a fake injury or some other reason, or at least let him go home. No. On the road in Atlanta, he lives in LA. They send him home at 3 a.m. He breaks the news on Instagram himself. He's gone. During a time they couldn't even move him if they wanted to because of the rules of the league. So he had to sit down until January 15th. He then waited to the trade deadline after they did that to him, which even if you don't want him anymore because he might have been annoying and was trying to exert himself too much as now a bench player, you knew who you were signing. Like George, they jettisoned him because he was being Chris Paul. He's been that way forever. You don't bring him in thinking he's not going to voice his opinion and try to exert himself, whether he's on the bench or not. But they get rid of him disrespectfully. They then move him to Toronto, of all places. George, the entire time he was at home, every report from him, and even out of his words, was he wanted to keep on playing, but he still wanted to stay close to home. When he signed with the Clippers in the offseason, it was, I want to stay close to home. Part of going to the Spurs was nobody else wanted me, but I want to be close to home. My home was in California. That's what got me to the Phoenix Suns in the first place. I want to be close to home. I'm a West Coast guy. I'm all about family. I want to see my kids' games. I care about that more than basketball. The Clippers said, we don't care. Toronto, Canada, the other side of the country. Yeah. The other side of the world. Yeah, but you could argue, George, the way the NBA works where stars usually get what they want, even if you're jettisoning him, if you're going to move him in a weird deal because now you're clearly parting ways officially. Generally speaking, when you're a Hall of Famer, you would get some level of care that they would say, well, your family's in California. You're going to retire soon. You're almost 40. You have kids. We're going to move you. You can't be here, but we're not going to send you to Toronto, Canada. We're going to find a better situation for you since you are I'll say the greatest player in franchise history. Like, whatever you think of Chris Paul's legacy, whether he's top 5 point
A lot of
guard,
it's in Los
top
Angeles,
8, top 10, top 3. No, forget his legacy. Who was a better Clipper in the history of the franchise during the Clipper time? I don't mean career. Like Kawhi Leonard, I guess, would be one, but he's been hurt the whole freaking time except for this year. Blake Griffin was good, but he wasn't Chris Paul. Chris Paul is the greatest Clipper of all time. Certainly it's not Elton Brand. Like, what are we doing here? So you have the greatest Clipper of all time, the greatest player in the franchise history.
Good.
You jettison him at 3 a.m, disrespect him that way, and then you send him to Toronto. Come on. But, like, do you think we see him again?
No.
He said he wants to play.
I think the Raptors will just cut him or some shit. Like, that's how they're kind of always.
Does he not? If he gets, but then he'd be free to sign elsewhere. Does he sign somewhere? He then would be able to sign with another team if they would do that. Does he not get on a team for the final month of the year? And now the problem is Lakers have no cap space.
I'm going to say he's already said he's going to retire, right? I'm going to say no.
At the end of
what's that?
Yeah. He said at the end of the year. He wanted to play this year.
21st
the world
season.
is not allowing him to play. He wanted to
21st season, 12-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA first team, second in NBA history in assists.
Yeah.
2-time gold medalist in the Olympics.
Steals up there. I mean, up there in steals. Yeah.
Basically, it's going to have to be somebody, like Phoenix out of the goodness of their own heart, just bringing them in for like a 10-day, right? At the end of the season.
They're in the playoff picture right now. If you're the Suns,
and like letting them get some, 5 minutes. I like Udonis Haslem. They're going to somebody may Udonis Haslem him and just like, hey, why don't you come here and go out properly, right? Because this is not proper. As much as Kellen does not like him, but he's face turned. To do this to Chris Paul, do
you think the Lakers and LeBron finally reaches out? I mean, like he didn't do that.
He did the Lakers thing. You can't go back to the Lakers. No more California teams. We can't do no more. It's it.
They were able to play for the Lakers. He was traded there, and you could argue David Stern did this to him. He should have let him go to the Lakers in the first place. He was going to join up with Kobe Bryant, and David Stern stepped in.
That is actually good. I like that.
Imagine a what if. Someone should do a documentary, a what if story. If he would have actually let that trade happen, and Chris Paul's on the Lakers, you're not going to see a lot that happened after that in the league. But Chris Paul's life would have probably been better. He would have been in LA maybe forever and carried the torch after Kobe. But because look how many more years they would have got out of Chris Paul after Kobe Bryant retired, by the way. It would have been great for the Lakers business.
Good transition for the Lakers.
They would have been nice transition, but David Stern stepped in and wouldn't let it go down. And Chris Paul ever since then has just become this basketball mercenary, almost a victim in this way. And he's not trying to go anywhere because of money like James Harden. He's a victim of this. Do the Lakers do it? Do they have the cap space? Or they
no. I don't think the odds are he doesn't play again. If he does, I don't even think it's the Lakers. I think it's a courtesy.
Well, do you have an answer though on, in all seriousness, for a second here, and try to compose myself? Do you have any type of rationale why a still productive player who obviously is a Hall of Famer? You have to admit, this is, even for a player who you might think is a jerk, and some fans do think he's a jerk, and he's very hard to work with because he's surly and he's very opinionated. And even players that like him would say that he sometimes could be tough to be around. He knows that. He even admitted it about himself. But even knowing his personality, I can't think of another Hall of Famer in any sport that has been treated like this. I mean, he's treated like a vagabond of the league that, like, why has he been treated this way for now 5 straight years? The Suns had him take them to the finals and they kicked him out. He didn't want to leave there. If you remember, he went to Good Morning America and said, "I'm pissed off." He did not want to leave there. He's been traded every time.
There's got to be something about his personality that people don't like. That's the only thing I can give you.
That's a lot to treat him this way, though. In the NBA,
because it's happened, like you said, it's happened in multiple places across multiple seasons.
So you're almost just left with it. George. It almost sounds like you're left with that. It's either everybody else or it's you. Like if you're Chris Paul, because it can't be everybody else.
I think it can't be everybody else at this point. I think it's Chris Paul's fault.
I mean, you got to feel bad though.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if they did it, I mean, are they going to put all these teams there when he gets in the Hall of Fame? Like when he was in Springfield, are they going to have it's going to be so many teams with the 1 year and like it just
all the jerseys hanging up. Yeah.
I mean, Chris Paul Raptors jersey got to be in a Goodwill somewhere. Get that one. But yeah, I mean, it's just it. I mean, obviously the Clippers treat him very poorly. What I would do here's if I'm Chris Paul, I would stop playing because obviously, even if another team wants to sign you, this is just getting embarrassing. Go in the Hall of Fame, retire, say your piece, throw mud on the Clippers if you want. What I would do, here's my Chris Paul revenge. I would tell the Clippers, you have your nice, fancy arena. I'm the best player in franchise history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go in the Hall of Fame. You clearly don't like me. You ruined the whole thing we were trying to repair when I came back. You treated me very poorly. I'm not going to let you retire my number. I would hold firm and not let it go up. I wouldn't let it go up. What does he get out of it being up there? They've treated. I mean, I would not let it go up. I would not let it go up. I would just not let it go up. I would require almost like a public apology or something to have it go up there. I would just not let it go up. Because even if you don't like, there's no reason in the world he was treated the way he was, even if you don't like his personality. I would just not let it go up. I would just say, I don't want it. Like, you don't need that to go to the Hall of Fame. What do I need that for?
Yeah.
I mean, I just wouldn't let it go up. And if they want to do it because there's reports they want to do it, what does that benefit me? If you want to do it, you don't send me home at 3 a.m. Like, if you want to do that, you at least let us go home. You letting me wake up in the morning, like do it at 10 a.m.
the team, we're not trading you. You just got to get out of here.
George, can you imagine?
It's got to be him at this point, Mike. I don't know.
No, I understand it's him, but can you imagine? I want you to picture yourself. Can you imagine being? Because it can't. I would imagine it certainly wasn't, T. Lou, who, says they're friends. I can't imagine that friendship's rolling along here any
Tyrone is not a good coach.
Well, he has a championship. He's a good coach, but I don't know if he's a good guy. He's not a good friend.
He's riding off a lot of other people's coattails, in my opinion. So.
Well, but everyone's hurt. I don't know what you want him to do. I mean, the conference finals that I alluded to, ever since he got to the Clippers, nobody's been healthy. But separate from him as a coach, I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a good person to Chris Paul. Like, they're friends. They went on that boardroom show and talked about how they were friends. That was prior to this. I would certainly end the friendship. I mean, off of this. But can you imagine being the person that Lawrence Frank and T. Lou, I imagine, was in on it, even though he denies it? They had to tell somebody. Can you imagine knocking on Chris Paul's door at 3 a.m., 3 a.m? Yeah. You're getting him out of sleep to tell him that you're being sent home. Can you imagine that job? Somebody had to have. But yeah, wild. I guess as we round it out, are you watching the Olympics? Are you tuned in already to the Olympics? Are you?
Oh yeah.
Are you excited that the NHL players are back, and do you have any faith in Team USA right now? Because absolutely. I do not have faith in Team USA, even though I'm excited for hockey and the Olympics.
Absolutely excited for the Olympics. Chris Paul, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, of course, in basketball. The Winter Games taking place in Milan Cortina. I want to give a couple shout outs. Breezy Johnson, U.S. gold medalist in women's downhill. She's only the second American woman to win the downhill, along with Lindsey Vonn in 2010, who was going to compete in this event. And tragically, after skiing practice runs with a torn ACL, broke her leg.
She claims she claims it's not because of the ACL, is what she says.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I could throw in there, do you have any problem with her competing? Because there are some that do.
No, yeah, that's like the dumbest discussion on the internet. There's a lot of dumb discussions on the internet.
There are some that even bring up that they think she should have to pay the money for the airlift.
Like, no.
I mean,
it's not like they gave her, it's not, with respect to golf or tennis, I should say specifically, it's not a sponsor exemption. It's not a gifted wild card, like Venus Williams and some other folk, that get at these type of tournaments.
You're not riding in a cart when everyone else is walking. No, it's not the equivalent of that.
She qualified on merit, was still fast, had won races in the last 2 years as part of this comeback. And at age 41, it's an embodiment of the American spirit. It's something to be celebrated, not something to be panned. For what she was trying to do and what she had vowed to do. So good on her. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Ben Ogden too. American men's cross-country skier, won the silver medal. He's the first American man in 50 years to win a cross-country medal. Tells you how good all these Norwegian and Scandinavian countries are good at that sport. To the hockey, shout out the women first, who in their first 4 games, 20 goals. for 1 goal against, including a 5-0 shutout of Canada without Marie-Philippe Poulin, who's the best player in Canadian history. So we'll see. They're likely on a collision course. They've played in pretty much every gold medal game.
That's the only problem, though. That's the problem. That's the problem with in terms of marketing the women's side of things. It's just a collision course every time.
Sweden got there once when the Americans didn't, and that's the only other outlier. And the Americans won it in Pyeongchang in 2018. They'll be looking to do that again. They didn't win. Canada won it in Beijing the last time out. So collision course, everybody expects there. The men is interesting, Mike, and kind of as we were talking before the show, like I'm curious to see, first time since Sochi, since we've seen NHL players playing in a best on best Olympic tournament, sans the World Cup of Hockey in 2016, sans the Four Nations last year. I just think Canada's experience, right? We're dealing, and with no disrespect to the Four Nations, because that was a fun tournament. Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, the Kachucks, the Hugheses. There's a lot of good young American players that I've been waiting to see play at this level, at the Olympic level, for a long time now.
Yeah, we had a cycle that was lost because the NHL didn't.
You lost the cycle there. Like I think 2018, Pyeongchang, not with the COVID and everything like that, but like 2018 would have been nice to see some of these guys. Now, I just think Canada, with the experience, you still got Crosby, you still got Drew Doughty, some of these veterans on there. Canada's goaltending may be the interesting quirk of that. Jordan Bennington not having the best year, but can these young Americans push through against the Canadians? I'm kind of with you. Even the Americans go into this as the number 1 rated team in the world right now after the World Championship victory, but as a federation, but. I still would give Canada in a head-to-head matchup. I'd give Canada the edge. We'll see how that looks as this plays out. But I just think Canada's veteran leadership, Crosby captaining again, McDavid, all the other Nathan McKinnon, the guys that they have that have not only have the veteran leadership in the NHL, but also from the Four Nations last year. I think the American team, some of those guys lack deep playoff experience, right? With no offense to Austin Matthews. Some of those guys, who's the captain of this American squad, some of those guys lack the deep experience, the deep playoff runs, and which is truly different and the closest thing you can get to Olympic, with, again, no disrespect to the Four Nations. So I'd give Canada the edge here, and I'm curious to see if the Americans can be as offensively potent as they should be, at least on paper.
Yeah, I think either Team USA takes it all the way and at least gets to the gold medal game, even if they lose to Canada again, or they could be vulnerable for an early exit here. I would not be shocked if it is an early exit. We've seen that in the past as well from countries that go in as the number weighted country. And Canada's roster, in an Olympic tournament, it's not always the best roster that wins, but if the best roster is formed the right way, has players that know their role, and there's a continuity there. And these players have all played together in some respect and have all had deep runs and all know how this style works, even though they didn't send NHL players the last cycle. It's certainly Canada's gold medal to lose for me. And it almost feels like it could easily be what it was the last time. Canada win gold when NHL players were there, or even honestly what the Four Nations was like. Yes, Crosby's a captain, and yes, he's performing and playing very well in the NHL, maybe above what anybody would thought he could do it at his age. But forget who has the C on. This team is led by Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon now. They were the players that were the presence in Four Nations. Connor McDavid was amazing in that run. And I don't think Crosby has to do what maybe he had to do when he scored the golden goal, where he kind of was carrying the team and he was in his prime. Crosby does not have to dominate these games. He does not have to even score in these games. His presence alone, in which he'll command attention, could be a benefit for this team. You have Sidney Crosby, who's probably a top 5 all-time player, is probably your 4th or 5th best player in terms of active players going today right now. Brad Marchand even there, and he's obviously coming off that run with the Panthers and is still able to have success and knows how to play this playoff style, Olympic style hockey. You have a myriad of players that have medals, that have Olympic competition under their belt, that have Four Nations competition under their belt, that have international competition under their belt. Whereas on Team USA, they're just younger. They're just younger players. They're not as experienced, and maybe that can work. and maybe that cockeyed optimism can kind of work, and maybe they have the firepower. To me, USA has even more of a question mark in net than Canada does. Canada's overcome that before. I'm not comfortable with Team USA's situation in net that went down to the wire too. Chris Chelios, George was talking a week ago about who he thinks should play in net. Like, that should have been decided. It almost feels like they don't know what they're doing with their team. So everyone's talking Team USA in Canada. I would not be shocked if this is a year that we see a wild card team make a run, that we see somebody else make a run. We've seen Sweden do that.
Germany
could certainly do it again. Germany could do it again. Leon Draisaitl, bringing the flag in. He certainly could do it. He has played really well in recent weeks in the NHL. He maybe could carry them. We don't have the benefit of either seeing Russia or even the nation that is not actually Russia, the Olympic athletes from Russia. We don't have an OAR situation here. And when, George, Team USA should be lucky because people forget. They act like it's just an afterthought. OAR won gold. I mean, they won gold as a non-country that was competing not that long ago. But yeah, Sweden maybe could do it. It feels like there's a chance for Team USA to be vulnerable here for an upset. I'd love to see it be Canada and USA again. But if it is Canada versus USA again for the gold, I have no reason why I wouldn't think Canada would do it again and would beat them again, and they're the better team again. But Canada's just that team that's not going to freak out if they would have a rough period, or even if they would drop a game. They can pick it up. They can come back from anywhere. They can overtake, games and teams and dominate if they need to. Canada really has the perfect recipe to do this, regardless of any international ratings, which, as you were alluding to, are also a bit skewed because it's not all, those aren't always going off of this same roster that's competing that was in that World Championship. And in the Four Nations, it's unfair to fully judge that off the Olympic rankings because that only had a handful of nations, literally. They're not all competing in that. So it's not like there are countries that are in this that did not compete in the Four Nations. They weren't a part of it. So to use that too much is also unfair. That was a very small, week-long thing. It was literally Four Nations. This is Olympic competition and a much longer gauntlet of a tournament here. So I would think this is Canada's gold medal to lose, but we will see what happens.
The crux of, for the inside baseball, at least for me, of Bill Guerin and Mike Sullivan, who obviously worked together in Pittsburgh. Bill Guerin was assistant GM. Now he's the GM of the Wild. Sullivan was the coach. Now he's obviously the coach of the Rangers. Working with the young roster. I've been hammering Mike the Troll, Mike Sullivan on social media that he'd never let these players that are seeing the ice in Pittsburgh this year see the ice when he was there because the guy loves veterans, right? But
he wants to win now. He thinks he can win now with veterans. Well, now he needs to win now with younger players.
You got Matt, and look at some of the line combinations that have been reported out. Matt Boldy, who's a guy that nobody knows or isn't a household name. He's got 32 goals this season. He's Team USA. They left Jason Robertson off the roster, who also has 32 goals this season. So you're gonna you expect physicality, but also goal scoring from the Americans. But kind of to your point, I think the veteran nature of what Canada's doing is going to win out. One hang up maybe goaltending. So we'll see what that looks like, as it always is so crucial in these type of tournaments, whether it's the Stanley Cup or the Olympics.
I think the only issue for Team Canada will be if the top scorers get cold, and then, which we've seen, this is really the only McDavid kryptonite at all, is even though he was putting the points up and deserving of a Conn Smythe and all of that and was so great in those finals runs, even though they lost, the style that can hurt him is what the Panthers do. And that kind of like grind it out. Like, if we get a lead, we're going to strangle you to death, and we're going to just focus in on you and make it really hard and beat you up and be so physical with you. USA maybe could mirror that style and try to, they probably could try to do that. I mean, you have the Tkachuk brothers, like they literally could do that exact same recipe of the Panthers to McDavid, to McKinnon, and Canada probably will have to rely on their top players more. Like maybe George, I'm not going to put it past them at all. We've seen this as well. If McDavid is having an issue with that and McKinnon's having an issue with that, wouldn't shock me if Crosby then says to himself, well, shit, now I got to score some goals. So now I'm going to go through the open lane to this guy because you got two players. I mean, it could be, it could flip. We're kind of predicting that Crosby's going to, if they win gold, he'll still be like the fourth or fifth best player on this team and wouldn't lead the team in goals or points. That happened last time Canada won gold. That happened in the Four Nations. Crosby was not the best player that on the Four Nations win, even though he was on the winning side. But if they're trying to, drape everybody over McDavid all day and McKinnon all day, it'll open up space for Crosby. So maybe he then could take it over. And you would imagine that if you're strategizing going against Team Canada, you'd imagine, even though Crosby, again, is a top 5, maybe Mount Rushmore player of all time, you got to be sitting there saying, we got to take out the younger bucks. Like they got to be scheming against McDavid and McKinnon in that group. So if that works, then maybe Crosby has open space to dominate in his own right. And maybe he can turn it on and do that through an Olympic tournament for a couple of weeks. It wouldn't be out of the question. So maybe that's a path for Canada as well. But are you going Canada or the field? I think Canada does this again, as boring as that sounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
As boring as that sounds. And then maybe the next year will be this has to be Crosby's last one, I would think. So maybe
4 years. He'll be 41, 42.
But I mean, you know what will end up happening then. And the reason why I'm saying this is his last one, even if he's not going to retire and say he's even playing
in France in 4 years. So
yeah, but I also think at that point, and he wouldn't want to do this, you're going to have the conversation of he's taking a spot. Like, does he need to do it again? Like, how many gold medals do you need to have? So I think he probably would not do it again, even if he's in the NHL. And technically, I guess he could regardless. I would think this is it for him, but that could even be more motivation for him. So I would not. Yeah, goaltending is going to be an issue. You could make an argument, George, and maybe this is something to watch for people. I could argue that going into an Olympic tournament, in terms of who's going to be the starting goaltenders for these countries, this is probably an Olympics with giant question marks in net for every one of these contending countries. You could argue this is the worst goaltending internationally we've seen in a while. I mean, a lot of these elite goaltenders, even in the NHL, are having less than stellar years. Hellebuck is having a horrendous year with Winnipeg. They're not walking into this standing on their heads.
Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger. Yep.
I mean, Ottinger has been solid, but Hellebuck has had a rough year. He has had a rough year. So you could argue that this is worse goaltending than certainly the last time the NHL players were in the Olympics. Certainly what we've seen in recent memory, even going into last year. So we'll see if that's an issue. I would imagine the Achilles heel for a lot of these teams will be goaltending if they do lose.
Swayman as well on the roster, excuse me, for the Americans. And as I mentioned, Jordan Bennington, Logan Thompson, Darcy Kemper in Canada. So we'll see how it looks. Few weeks, crowning an Olympic champion.
Yeah,
that will put a nice gold medal sized bow on this edition of the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show. Find us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, and more. Just search Howitzer or Howitzer Buzz-saw in your favorite podcast app. Also, shout out to B Hyphen, whose music you hear right here each and every time on the HBS and the Hyphen Podcast Group, a Morgantown, West Virginia-based podcast collective, bring great podcasts to the people. Podcastgroup.com and on socials.
You can find us everywhere on social at Gerbo3, at Howitzer Buzz-saw for the show handle, at Mike Asti 11. And yes, we bumped to Kellen's champion at the beginning of this show, so he sings about champions and maybe gold medalists as well. They're a kind of champion, and yeah, it's going to be an interesting Olympics. It's then going to be an interesting spring in the world of sports for sure. And at the very least, Chris Paul, as he's sitting home like the rest of us watching, I'd imagine, can look at his gold medals and say, hey, I got those. They put him on Team USA all the time. I'm surprised they didn't, that wasn't controversial. Isaiah Thomas got screwed from Team USA, at least back in the day. At least Chris Paul was able to be part of Team USA, or USAB, as they like to call it, on the basketball side. But yeah, and I guess over under, George, how many times are we going to see Snoop Dogg during the broadcast, the national broadcast, which is generally a recap because of the time zone difference here nightly for NBC with Mike Tirico? over under 5 appearances for Snoop Dogg on a nightly basis?
I feel like over is a good bet. Yeah. Got to use him somehow, you know.
Well, they've been using him a lot. I mean, it's the greatest
Yeah.
gig in the world. He just goes to the Olympics, has
He's
fun,
very
and
good.
shoots some clips.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really the best gig in the world. But Snoop Dogg is all over the place once again.
This has been another edition of the Howitzer and Buzz-saw Show, where we conquer another trade deadline, medal stands, and sports radio.
One day at a time.